The smell of burning toast yanks me from sleep, and for a moment I'm disoriented, thinking Jake's making breakfast again. Then reality crashes in. Jake hasn't made me breakfast in 8 months. He's probably making breakfast for Lily now. I stumble to the kitchen, cursing as I rescue the blackened bread from my temperamental toaster. The autumn sun streams through my apartment windows, catching the diamond on my left hand, the one I still can't bring myself to remove. 5 years of marriage reduced to a sparkly reminder of everything I've lost. My phone buzzes. It's Valerie, my one remaining ally at Townsend Corp. "Vienna, you need to see this. Check your email now." I pull up my inbox and there it is. The company-wide announcement complete with a photo that makes my stomach lurch. Jake and Lily beaming at their surprise weekend wedding. My husband, ex-husband, and my best friend of 15 years, looking like they've just won the lottery of life. "Did you know?" Valerie's voice is gentle. "About them?" "No?" The word comes out as a whisper. I knew they'd been spending time together after everything. Lily said she was just helping him through the divorce. I laugh, but it sounds hollow even to my ears. Guess she was helping herself to my husband. "There's more," Valerie says. "Keep reading." I scroll down, my hands shaking. Beneath the wedding announcement is a promotion notice. Effective immediately, Lily Townsend now, is being appointed Chief Strategy Officer. My old position. The one I built from nothing over 12 years before Jake orchestrated my voluntary resignation during our divorce. "The retreat's tomorrow," Valerie continues. "They'll both be there. The whole executive team will. The annual leadership retreat. I'd forgotten. Last year, I'd led the opening keynote. This year, I wasn't even invited. "I can't avoid them forever," I say, more to myself than Valerie. "Might as well face them now." "Vienna," Valerie hesitates. "Maybe you shouldn't." "I'm still a shareholder," I cut in. "I have every right to be there." After hanging up, I stand in front of my closet, pushing past the comfortable work-from-home clothes I've lived in since leaving Townsend. At the back hangs the red power suit I wore the day I closed the Morrison deal, the biggest acquisition in company history. Lily had been so proud of me that day. We'd celebrated with champagne in my office, plotting our rise through the corporate ranks together. "We'll run this place someday," she'd said, clinking her glass against mine. The dynamic duo. Some duo we turned out to be. The suit still fits perfectly. I spend extra time on my makeup, erasing any trace of the sleepless nights and tears. The woman in the mirror looks powerful, controlled. No one would guess she's breaking inside. The retreat venue is a luxury resort an hour outside the city. I time my arrival perfectly, late enough to miss the morning mingling, early enough to slip into the back of the main presentation room just as Jake takes the stage. He looks good. Of course he does. He's practically glowing as he welcomes everyone, making the same terrible jokes that used to make me groan affectionately. A few rows ahead, Lily sits in my old seat, nodding along. She's wearing the Cartier bracelet I noticed on her wrist months ago. She'd said it was a gift from her parents. Now I wonder if it was from Jake all along. My presence creates a ripple of whispers. Jake falters mid-sentence when he spots me, but recovers quickly. Too quickly, like he's been practicing for this moment. After his speech during the coffee break, Lily approaches. She's wearing the confident smile I taught her to use in tough negotiations. "Vienna, I'm so glad you came." She reaches for a hug like nothing has changed. I step back. "Congratulations," I say coolly. "On everything. I wanted to tell you myself, but it all happened so fast." Her smile slips slightly. "You understand, don't you? Sometimes life just takes unexpected turns." Over her shoulder I see Jake watching us, his expression unreadable. Lily follows my gaze and something flickers across her face. Guilt. Fear. Before I can process it, she's composed again. "We should catch up properly," she says. "There's so much to discuss." "Yes," I agree, matching her smile with one of my own. "So much." She turns to leave but pauses. "That suit, isn't that what you wore for the Morrison deal?" Good memory. Those were simpler times, weren't they? There's an edge to her voice I've never heard before. Back when we thought we knew what we wanted. She walks away, leaving me with the distinct feeling that I've missed something crucial. That beneath the perfect facade of their fairy tale romance and corporate success lies a story I don't yet understand. But I will. Oh, I will. The rain hasn't stopped for 3 days. I'm staring out my home office window when the email arrives. Its cheerful subject line a stark contrast to its contents. Organizational restructuring. Important updates. My hands don't shake this time. Maybe I've been expecting this since the retreat, since I saw the way Jake and Lily exchanged glances when they thought no one was watching. The message is corporate poetry, flowery language about streamlining operations and optimizing leadership structures. But the meaning is clear. My consulting contract with Townsend Corp is terminated, effective immediately. Valerie calls before I've finished reading. I just heard. Those bastards. Tell me what's really happening in there. I keep my voice steady, professional, like I'm discussing someone else's life falling apart. It's worse than we thought. Lily's been meeting with the board privately. She's dismantling your entire division, piece by piece. Everyone you hired, every project you started, she's either killing it or claiming it as her own vision. I think of Mia, the bright-eyed intern I'd mentored last summer. Of Paisley, who'd worked miracles to land us the Asian market expansion. What about the team? Some are being relocated, others. Valerie's silence says enough. My throat tightens. She's destroying everything I built. There's something else. Valerie lowers her voice. I overheard Jake and Lily arguing in his office yesterday. She was upset about some documents he wanted her to sign. Something about transferring shares before the quarter ends. A memory surfaces Jake 2 years ago explaining his elaborate plan to restructure company ownership. I'd thought he was protecting our future. Now I wonder if he'd been plotting my exit even then. My doorbell rings, interrupting my thoughts. Through the peephole I see Lily, rain-soaked and looking nothing like the polished executive from the retreat. I know you're in there, Vienna. Her voice is thick. Please, 5 minutes. I should ignore her. Instead, I open the door. She steps inside, water dripping onto my hardwood floors. I had to explain in person. About the contract. Save it. I cross my arms. I'm sure the board had very compelling reasons. It wasn't my decision. She runs a hand through her wet hair. Jake insisted. He said keeping you connected to the company was too risky. Risky? I laugh. I built half that company. You don't understand. There are things happening, decisions being made. She stops, biting her lip. I never wanted any of this. Really? Because from where I'm standing, you've gotten everything you wanted. My husband, my job, my life. Your life, her eyes flash. You think I wanted to be Jake's backup plan? His consolation prize after you? She cuts herself off. After I what? Nothing, forget it. She moves toward the door, then pauses. Check your old files. The Morrison deal documentation. There's something you need to see. Before I can respond, she's gone, leaving only wet footprints and questions. I spend the next 3 hours digging through archived emails and digital folders. At first, I find nothing unusual in the Morrison acquisition paperwork, just standard contracts and due diligence reports. Then I notice something odd. The final ownership structure doesn't match my original proposal. Somewhere between my draft and the executed version, key percentages shifted. Control of certain assets moved between shell companies I don't recognize. My phone rings. Unknown number. Vienna. The voice is familiar but unexpected. It's Andy. Andy Gibson. We met at the Thompson conference last year. Andy Gibson, the venture capitalist who'd tried to poach me for his firm before everything fell apart. I heard about your contract, he continues, and I've been watching Townsend's recent moves. Very interesting patterns emerging. I think of Lily's cryptic warning, the modified documents. What kind of patterns? The kind that could be very valuable to someone with the right insight. Someone like you. He pauses. Have dinner with me tomorrow. We should discuss your future. After we hang up, I sit in the growing darkness, listening to the rain. On my laptop screen, financial statements and ownership diagrams glow like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Jake always said I was brilliant at seeing patterns others missed, at finding leverage in unexpected places. Time to prove him right. I open my safe and pull out a small red notebook, the one where I used to track my most sensitive business insights. The last entry is from 8 months ago, the day before Jake asked for a divorce. On a fresh page, I write a single sentence. To destroy a castle, first find its foundation. The scent of espresso mingles with expensive cologne as Andy slides into the booth across from me. Le Petit Bistrot, his choice, private enough for secrets, public enough to seem innocent. You look better than at the retreat, he says, studying me over his menu. You were there? Back row, watching Jake's performance. His smile is sharp. And yours. The waiter arrives. Andy orders for both of us in perfect French, then pulls out his phone, sliding it across the table. On the screen is a financial news article about Townsend Corp's upcoming merger talks. Notice anything interesting? He asks. I scan the piece, my pulse quickening as I spot it. The timing of the merger discussions aligns perfectly with when Jake first suggested our divorce, when he started spending late nights at the office with Lily. They needed me gone before this went public, I say slowly. But why? Because you would have seen what they're trying to hide. Andy leans forward. The merger's a cover. They're really preparing for a hostile takeover of Morrison Industries, the same company from my biggest deal, the acquisition that made my career and apparently planted the seeds of its destruction. That's why they modified the original ownership structure, I murmur. They were laying groundwork, even then. Smart girl. Andy's eyes gleam. Here's the interesting part. I've been quietly buying Townsend shares, with your insider knowledge and my capital. He lets the implication hang. Our food arrives. I push my salmon around the plate, mind racing. What's your angle? Maybe I just enjoy watching arrogant men fall, he shrugs. Or maybe Morrison's board would be very grateful to whoever prevents this takeover. Grateful enough to offer a certain displaced executive a fresh start. My phone buzzes. Valerie. I excuse myself to take the call in the restaurant's elegant bathroom. Where are you? She demands. Lily's been asking questions about your old files. She seems scared. I'm having dinner with Andy Gibson. Silence. Then, be careful, Vienna. Andy's not exactly known for his loyalty. Neither was my best friend. I catch my reflection in the mirror, cheeks flushed, eyes bright with possibility. Besides, what do I have to lose? Back at the table, Andy's typing on his laptop. Just sent you some documents, proof of what they're planning. Look them over tonight. And if I'm interested? We move fast. I have other investors ready. He closes his laptop. But first, you'll need to talk to someone. Get some additional leverage. Who? Ria, my sister. He writes an address on his napkin. She handles certain sensitive aspects of my business. Meet her tomorrow. Later that night, I pore over Andy's documents. The takeover plan is brilliant in its complexity and familiar. I recognize Jake's strategic fingerprints, but there's something else. Something that reminds me of late-night strategy sessions with Lily, when we'd dream up elaborate corporate maneuvers over wine and takeout. My doorbell rings. Again, Lily stands there, but this time she's stone sober and angry. Are you insane? She bursts past me. Having dinner with Andy Gibson? Do you know what Jake will do if... If what? I step closer. If he finds out I know about the Morrison takeover? She pales. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Then explain it to me. You owe me that much. I can't. Her voice cracks. God, Vienna, I wish... She stops, composing herself. Just stay away from Andy, please, for your own safety. Like you stayed away from Jake? She flinches as if I'd slapped her. That was different. I never meant... It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Instead of answering, she pulls something from her bag. A USB drive. Everything you need to know is here. But Vienna? Her eyes meet mine. Once you look at this, there's no going back. After she leaves, I stare at the drive for a long time. Finally, I plug it in. The files are encrypted, but I recognize the format. It's the same encryption Jake and I used for our most confidential documents. He'd taught me the password structure himself, late one night in bed. My fingers hover over the keyboard as I remember his words. The best passwords are things only you would know, moments that changed everything. I type in the date of our first kiss. Access denied. The date we met. Access denied. I close my eyes thinking, what moment really changed everything? Then I know. I type in the date of the Morrison deal closing. The files open, and suddenly I understand why Jake wanted me gone, why Lily looks haunted, why Andy's really interested. This isn't just about a takeover. It's about what happened 3 years ago when we all made choices we couldn't undo. And now those choices are coming back to destroy us all. The city roars 20 stories below as I wait in Andy's sister's office. Rhea Gibson looks nothing like her brother. Where he's all polished charm, she's raw energy, sprawled in her chair with combat boots on her desk. "So you're the one who made my brother cancel his vacation," she grins. "The files were enlightening, weren't they?" My hands clench around my coffee cup. "How did you know about the USB drive? Please." She waves dismissively. "Lily's been my client for months. Who do you think helped her encrypt those files?" The coffee turns bitter in my mouth. "You're working with Lily?" "I work with anyone who pays." Rhea leans forward. "But right now, I'm more interested in working with you. Because you found something in those files that even Lily doesn't know about, didn't you?" She's right. Hidden in the documentation was evidence of a second set of transactions, ones that occurred right after the Morrison deal closed. Money moved through offshore accounts, ultimately landing in a trust controlled by Jake's family. The Morrison acquisition wasn't just business, I say quietly. It was personal. Jake's family had been trying to take control of Morrison for generations. My deal finally gave them their chance. "And you never suspected?" "I thought I was just good at my job." I laugh hollowly. "Turns out I was just a convenient tool, the ambitious wife who could make deals happen without asking too many questions. Now you're asking questions." Rhea's eyes gleam. "But are you ready for the answers?" She pulls up documents on her tablet, bank statements, emails, phone records. A web of connections between Jake's family and key players at Morrison, stretching back decades. "Your husband's been playing a very long game," she says. "And Lily, she's not just his new wife, she's his family's insurance policy." "What do you mean?" "Her father sits on Morrison's board. The marriage ensures his cooperation in the upcoming takeover." Rhea pauses. "She didn't tell you that part, did she?" My mind spins. Lily's father, the quiet man who'd attended our wedding, who'd always seemed so proud of our friendship. Another piece of the manipulation. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because unlike my brother, I believe in informed decisions." Rhea closes her tablet. "Andy wants to use you to stop the takeover, but he doesn't care about collateral damage, about who gets hurt. Like Paisley, who still works at Townsend. Like Mia, the intern who reminds me so much of myself at that age. My phone buzzes, speaking of Paisley. Her message makes my blood freeze. Emergency board meeting called for next week. They're moving faster than expected. I need to protect my people, I tell Rhea, before everything explodes. Then you'll need this. She hands me a thumb drive. Contact details for everyone involved in the original Morrison deal, including some who might be interested in preventing history from repeating. I stand to leave, but she catches my arm. "Vienna, remember Lily came to you with those files for a reason. Maybe she's not just Jake's insurance policy. Maybe she's looking for insurance of her own." That afternoon, I meet Valerie in a coffee shop far from the office. Her face is drawn with worry. "They're pushing people out," she says. "Anyone who might question the takeover. Paisley's being transferred to the Singapore office next month." "Unless we stop it." I show her the thumb drive. "I need you to help me contact these people carefully, through secure channels only." She studies me. "This is dangerous, Vienna. If Jake finds out, he already took everything from me." I grip my coffee cup tighter. What else can he do? He can destroy your reputation. Make sure you never work in this industry again. Maybe. I think of Lily's haunted eyes, of Ria's revelations. But I'm done being afraid of what Jake might do. It's time to show him what I can do. My phone lights up with a text from an unknown number. Meet tonight, 8 p.m., the place where it all started. I know exactly where. The small bar where Jake first introduced me to Lily, 15 years ago. Where our friendship began, before ambition and betrayal poisoned everything. I have to go, I tell Valerie. But first, I need you to do something. Get a message to Paisley. Tell her to delay accepting that transfer. Things are about to change. Walking to my car, I call Andy. I'm in, but we do this my way. No collateral damage. Whatever you say, boss. His smile is audible. Just remember, once we start, there's no going back. I think of the young woman I was, celebrating my friendship with Lily in that bar, of the wife I became believing in Jake's love, of the executive I am now, finally seeing the whole board clearly. Good, I say, because going back isn't an option anymore. The bar looks exactly the same. Dark wood, brass fixtures, the perpetual smell of lime and whiskey. Lily's already there, perched on the same stool where we first met, when Jake introduced his two favourite women and unknowingly set this whole tragedy in motion. I wasn't sure you'd come, she says as I slide onto the stool beside her. I almost didn't. I order a Manhattan, my drink from simpler days. But I want to hear you explain why your father's involvement in Morrison wasn't worth mentioning. She flinches. How did you... Does it matter? What matters is you're still lying, still playing both sides. You think I wanted this? Her voice cracks. My father's dying, Vienna. Pancreatic cancer. Jake's family promised to take care of him, to make sure he dies with dignity instead of drowning in medical debt. All I had to do was... She trails off. Marry Jake. Help destroy me. Help save the company, she corrects. The Morrison takeover isn't just about power, it's about survival. Townsend Corp is bleeding money. The merger rumours are keeping the stock price up, but once people realise the truth... My drink arrives. I take a long sip, letting the bourbon burn. And what is the truth? Jake's family. They're not just taking over Morrison. They're going to strip both companies for assets. Thousands will lose their jobs. She leans closer, including Paisley, Mia, everyone you tried to protect. Why tell me this now? Because I found something. She glances around before continuing. Evidence that Jake's family has done this before. Multiple times. They target companies, install their people, then destroy everything for profit. But if this evidence got into the right hands, like the SEC, like Andy Gibson, her eyes meet mine. I know you're working with him, but Vienna, he's not what you think. He's... The bar's door chimes. Lily goes pale. I turn to see Jake walking in, his face a mask of calculated calm. Well, isn't this cozy? He slides in between us, ordering scotch. My wife and my ex-wife, sharing secrets. Just catching up, I say smoothly. Reminiscing about old times. Old times. He smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Like when you two would plot takeovers over cocktails, or more recent times, like Lily accessing confidential files she shouldn't have. Lily's hand trembles as she reaches for her drink. Jake catches her wrist, his grip visibly tight. The board meeting's been moved up, he continues conversationally. Tomorrow morning, and my family's very interested in knowing exactly what you two have been discussing. Let her go, Jake. My voice is steel. You've done enough damage. Damage? He laughs. I gave you everything, both of you. Power, position, purpose. And how do you repay me? By conspiring with Andy Gibson? We know about the other companies, Lily bursts out. What your family did to them. Of course you do. He releases her wrist. Why do you think I married you? Your father's position was valuable, but your predictable moral outrage, priceless. You bastard, I whisper. No, Vienna. I'm a businessman. And tomorrow, when the board approves the Morrison acquisition, You'll both understand exactly what that means. He stands, straightening his tie. Oh, and don't bother calling Andy. He's been well compensated for his cooperation. After he leaves, Lily and I sit in stunned silence. He knew, she finally says. He knew everything. We played right into his hands. My mind races. If Andy's compromised, our entire plan is blown. The board meeting's in 12 hours, thousands of jobs hang in the balance. My phone buzzes, Rhea. Heard about Andy? Don't panic. Remember what I said about insurance policies? Then another text from Paisley. Got your message. Singapore transfer declined. Ready to help however needed. And finally, Valerie. Emergency meeting in my apartment. Now, bringing reinforcements. I look at Lily, seeing not the woman who betrayed me, but the friend who tried to warn me, who's still trying to make things right. Jake's right about one thing, I tell her. We were good at plotting takeovers together. What are you saying? I'm saying we have 12 hours to save everything we built, but this time we do it our way. I stand holding out my hand. You in? She stares at my offered hand, tears in her eyes. Why would you trust me after everything? Because you're not the only one who knows how to plan for betrayal. I smile grimly. And Jake's about to learn what happens when he underestimates both of us. She takes my hand, gripping it tight. Where do we start? With the truth. All of it. And then we show Jake what real businesswomen can do. Valerie's apartment buzzes with tense energy at midnight. Laptops glow, papers scatter across every surface, and 5 women who should be enemies sit planning revolution. The board meets in 8 hours, Valerie says, refilling coffee cups. Run it down again. I stand before our makeshift war room. Jake thinks he's got us cornered. He doesn't know about Paisley documenting every suspicious transaction for the past 6 months. Paisley looks up from her laptop. Or about Mia copying the internal communications before they could be deleted. Or about me, Rhea adds, sprawled on the couch. The thing about being the crazy sister is nobody watches what you access. She grins. Their security system really should be updated. Lily paces by the window. But it's not enough. Jake's family has the board in their pocket. They'll vote however he tells them. Unless... Valerie hesitates. Unless we can prove they've been compromised, that they're acting against shareholder interests. My phone buzzes. A text from Andy. Last chance. Walk away now. You don't want this fight. I show it to Rhea, who snorts. My brother always did underestimate women. He has no idea I've been building a case against him for years. Why? I ask. Because some of us remember what he did to his last partner. Her eyes darken. Some fights are personal. Lily stops pacing. Jake will destroy everyone in this room if we fail. He'll destroy thousands of people if we don't try, I counter, including your father. About that? She pulls out her phone, showing us an email. Dad's not as sick as Jake's family thinks. He's been gathering evidence too. He's ready to testify about their previous takeovers. Hope flickers, but something nags at me. It's too easy. Jake's too smart to leave this many loose ends. My phone rings. Unknown number. I answer on speaker. Hello, Vienna. Jake's voice fills the room. Having a nice little meeting. Ice floods my veins. Lily goes pale. How did you... Find you. Please. You think I don't track my wife's phone? That I don't monitor Valerie's apartment? He chuckles. I must admit, I'm impressed. Getting everyone to work together, that's the Vienna I fell in love with. The one who could always see the bigger picture. What do you want? To offer you a choice. In my hand, I have 2 press releases. One announces your appointment as CEO of Morrison Industries after the takeover. Very generous compensation package. The other, well, let's just say it details some unfortunate financial irregularities during your tenure as CSO. My hands shake. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your email. The documents appear in my inbox. The evidence is manufactured but convincing. Dates, transactions, signatures, all perfect forgeries that would take months to disprove. You have 1 hour, Jake continues. Choose the CEO position and everyone in that room walks away clean. Choose to fight me and I destroy you all. Not just your careers, everything. The line goes dead. Silence descends. I feel everyone's eyes on me. He's scared, Rhea finally says. He wouldn't offer a deal if he wasn't. Or he's toying with us, Paisley counters, making us think we have a choice. Lily approaches me, her face torn. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. We all are. I stare at the email attachments. The CEO offer is everything I've worked for. Power, validation, revenge of a sort. Jake's family would have to accept me as an equal. But I think of the Jake I married, who taught me to see 3 moves ahead, who showed me that the obvious play is usually a trap. Mia, I say suddenly, the internal communications you copied, did they include Jake's personal email? She nods. Everything from the last year. Search for anything about his family's private trust, the one they used in previous takeovers. Her fingers fly across keys. Here, encrypted messages from 3 months ago, Oh God. She turns her laptop. The emails reveal the final piece. Jake's family never intended to honor any deals. The trust is empty. They've already moved the assets. They're going to take everything, I realize. The CEO position, the company's, all of it. They'll make me the face of the destruction while they disappear with the money. 1 hour, Valerie reminds me softly. I look around the room, at Lily's determination, Rhea's fierce grin, Paisley's quiet strength, Mia's youth, Valerie's loyalty, at everything we could lose and everything we could become. I pull out my phone and dial Jake's number. Decision time, he answers. Yes, I say, but not the one you're expecting. I hit speaker and nod to Rhea, who connects her laptop to Valerie's TV. Across the screen, financial records begin to scroll, but not ours. Jake's sharp intake of breath tells me he recognizes them. The real war starts now. The boardroom feels smaller than I remember. Maybe it's the crowd. Every seat filled, reporters lining the walls, all eyes fixed on the empty chair at the head of the table. Jake's chair. He's late, Lily whispers beside me. Her hands twist a pen nervously. He's never late. I check my phone. No messages from Rhea or Valerie, who are positioned in the security office with Mia, ready to stream our evidence to every screen in the building. Paisley sits across the table, her laptop open, watching the trading signals. The door bursts open. Jake strides in, followed by 3 men I recognize from his family's trust. His eyes lock onto mine, and for a moment I see a flicker of the man I loved, brilliant, determined, unstoppable. Then he smiles, and he's a stranger again. My apologies for the delay, he announces, but I have some concerning information to share before we vote. He nods to his assistant, who begins distributing folders. Evidence has come to light of serious financial misconduct. Actually, I stand, cutting him off, I have something to share first. Vienna, he warns. Don't do this. I pick up the remote. Did you really think I wouldn't keep copies of everything? That I wouldn't recognize your family's pattern? The screens behind me flicker to life. Financial records scroll past, not just from Townsend Corp, but from every company his family has destroyed. Wire transfers, shell companies, offshore accounts. The trust is empty, I continue. Has been for months. They've already moved the money, haven't they, Jake? Just like they did with the others. Murmurs ripple through the room. Jake's family members shift uncomfortably. These documents are clearly fabricated, Jake says smoothly. And, given Ms. Howard's recent termination, her credibility is... Oh, I'm not your only problem. I nod to Paisley, who hits a key on her laptop. The trading screens explode with activity. Share prices plummet as pre-scheduled news releases hit the wire. Detailed exposés from 3 major financial publications, all launching simultaneously. Your father taught you to see 3 moves ahead, I tell Jake, but he never taught you to watch your back. Jake's facade cracks. You have no idea what you're doing. The jobs you'll destroy. Like you destroyed those other companies? Lily stands. Like you plan to destroy my father's legacy? Everything I did was for this company. Jake slams his hand on the table. For our future. No. I walk toward him slowly. Everything you did was for power. The company was just collateral damage. Like I was, like we all were. His family members are already edging toward the door, phones in hand. Jake sees them leaving and something breaks in his eyes. "Wait," he calls. "The vote has already happened." Paisley turns her screen, showing the emergency shareholder meeting results streaming in. "While you were trying to threaten Vienna last night, we were contacting major stakeholders. Amazing how quickly they'll act when they see proof their investments are about to vanish." The boardroom doors open again. 2 SEC agents enter, followed by Rhea and Valerie. "Mr. Townsend," one agent says, "we need you to come with us." Jake looks around wildly, seeing no allies left. His gaze settles on me. "I did love you," he says quietly. "In the beginning." "I know." My voice stays steady. "That's what made it so easy to trust you, to ignore the signs. But love without respect isn't love at all." As the agents lead him out, I feel a hand slip into mine, Lily, tears streaming down her face. "Your father?" I ask. "Safe. Already gave his statement to the SEC." She squeezes my hand. "Thank you for believing in me again." Paisley approaches with her laptop. "Trading stabilized. The board's approved emergency management changes. They want to talk to you." "Us," I correct her. "They want to talk to us." The reporters surge forward, questions flying. Through the chaos, I catch glimpses of my team. Valerie's proud smile, Mia's excited texting, Rhea's satisfied smirk. Women who chose truth over power, collaboration over destruction. My phone buzzes one last time. Andy. "You win. Impressive work. Dinner sometime?" I delete the message without responding. Some bridges are better left burned. The boardroom slowly empties, leaving just our core group. Sunrise streams through the windows, painting everything in new light. The same room where I once fought so hard for Jake's approval now feels like a launching pad instead of a battlefield. "So," Paisley grins, "ready to rebuild?" I look around at these women who risked everything to fight for what's right, who showed me that true power comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. "Yes," I say, "but this time we do it together." The morning sun paints the office windows gold as I pack the last of Jake's things into boxes. His degrees, his awards, the photo of us at our wedding. All carefully wrapped in newspaper-like artifacts from another life. A knock at the door. "Still cleaning house?" Rhea leans against the doorframe, eyebrow raised. "Just finishing." I hold up the wedding photo. "Want to help me burn these later?" "Actually, I have something better." She drops a file on my desk. "Remember how I said some fights are personal? This is why." Inside are photos of a younger Rhea with Andy, working at their first investment firm. News clippings about their meteoric rise. Then court documents. A lawsuit Andy filed to force her out, using manufactured evidence of misconduct. "Jake didn't create that playbook," she says quietly. "He learned it from my brother." "That's why you helped us." "Partly." She grins. "Also thought it was time someone showed these boys how it's really done." My phone buzzes. Lily requesting a video call. When I answer, she's standing in what looks like a hospital room. "Say hi to someone." She turns the camera to show her father in bed, looking tired but very much alive. "The treatment's working," she says. "Real treatment, not Jake's false promises. Dad's going to testify against Andy next week." "Good," I smile. "How's the Morrison merger going?" "Smoothly, now that we're doing it legitimately. Their board actually seems to trust us." She pauses. "I never thought we'd be here, working together again." "Neither did I." I look at the wedding photo still in my hand. Funny how betrayal can lead to truth. After we hang up, Valerie appears with coffee and a stack of reports. Paisley's team found 3 more shell companies, and Mia's developed a tracking system for suspicious transactions. "Already? It's only been 2 days. She said you taught her to work fast." Valerie sits. "Speaking of which, the board wants your decision by tomorrow. The CEO offer. Not Jake's fake version, but a real one, earned through merit and integrity." "I'm not taking it," I say. "What?" "I'm recommending you and Lily as co-CEOs." I hand her the proposal I've been drafting. "The company needs leaders who understand both innovation and ethics, who know how to build, not just acquire. But after everything you went through to get here, I didn't go through it to get here. I went through it to learn who I am. I start unpacking my own box, not of endings, but beginnings. My red notebook, the Morrison deal documents, the photo of our team celebrating after the board meeting. "And who is that?" Ria asks softly. Before I can answer, Paisley bursts in. "They found him. Jake's trying to make a deal with prosecutors. Let him." I place the wedding photo in the box of his things. Some prices aren't worth paying. "You're really ready to walk away?" Valerie asks. "From all of it?" I look around the office, at Ria's fierce loyalty, Valerie's steady presence, Paisley's brilliant determination. Through the glass walls, I see Mia at her desk, already becoming the leader I once hoped to be. "I'm not walking away," I say. "I'm choosing something better. We're starting a new firm. Ethics-focused consulting, helping companies grow sustainably. No predatory takeovers, no hidden agendas." "We?" Ria raises an eyebrow. "If you're interested, all of you." I pull out the business plans I've been working on. "It won't be easy. We'll be competing against Jake's whole network." "Good." Paisley grabs the plans. "I like a challenge." "Count me in," Ria grins. "About time someone disrupted the boys' club." Valerie studies me. "You knew you weren't taking the CEO job all along, didn't you?" "I knew I didn't want to sit in the castle I'd helped build with lies." I pick up Jake's box. Sometimes winning means walking away and building something true instead. Together we carry Jake's things to the lobby. I pause at the security desk, hand the box to the guard. "Have these delivered to his lawyers," I say, then turn to my team. My real team. "Ready?" The morning sun streams through the revolving doors as we step outside. The city feels different now. Not a battlefield, but a canvas. Not a place to conquer, but a place to create. My phone buzzes one last time. Jake's number. I decline the call without hesitation. Some castles are meant to fall, and some queens are meant to build something better than thrones.
My sister's housewarming party took precedence over my wedding in my parents' eyes, simply because I refused to invite her after she physically attacked me. As a result, my grandparents will be walking me down the aisle instead of my parents. For as long as I can remember, I've always felt that my parents favored my older sister, Mia, over me. She was the child they planned for, while I was an unexpected addition, born just 7 months later. It often seemed like I was a child they had reluctantly decided to keep rather than one they truly wanted. My maternal grandparents had passed away before I was born, but my paternal grandparents were very much alive and played a significant role in my upbringing. Grandma and Grandpa were my anchors, providing the love and support that I felt was often missing from my parents. I recall many times when my parents would leave me behind with my grandparents while taking Mia on trips. As a young child, I didn't mind because spending time with my grandparents was enjoyable. However, as I grew older, around the age of 8 or 9, I began to realize how unfair this was. My issues were not limited to my parents, they extended to Mia as well. Even though I didn't hold any grudges against her, I couldn't shake the feeling of being an unwelcome addition to the family. Mia seemed to recognize this and often made me feel like a stranger in my own home. She constantly competed with me, whether it was for grades, attention from our parents, or even the smallest accomplishments. It felt like a never-ending struggle for validation, with Mia always coming out on top due to my parents' favoritism. For instance, there was a time when Mia wanted to befriend a group of girls at school, but felt too awkward to approach them. I had art classes with these girls and had already made friends with them. I introduced Mia to the group, hoping to help her out. However, her enthusiasm to fit in came off as overbearing. She would try too hard to impress the girls, often coming across as intrusive. The tension between Mia and the girls was obvious, particularly when she made a clumsy attempt to interfere in a romantic situation that ended up embarrassing one of the girls. The girls made it clear that they did not want Mia to join us during our hangouts. I agreed, but Mia was outraged. She threw a tantrum, went to our parents, and insisted that I should not hang out with these mean girls anymore, claiming I should stand up for her. I refused, pointing out that it was her behavior that led to her being excluded. As always, my parents sided with Mia. lecturing me about her good intentions and pressuring me to mend things with the girls. They even suggested that if the girls did not forgive Mia, I should cut them off. Sticking to my decision was challenging. I liked my friends and was unwilling to jeopardize those relationships for Mia. I told my parents that finding friends for her was not my responsibility, and I wasn't going to sacrifice my happiness for her sake. My parents were furious and gave me the silent treatment for weeks, but I'm glad I held firm. The group of girls remained my close friends, becoming like sisters to me. We've shared many meaningful moments, and despite the difficulties, I'm proud of the choice I made to prioritize my own happiness. However, there was another reason for the growing animosity between Mia and me involving a boy she had a crush on, which added to the complexity of our strained relationship. There was a guy in my class whom I'd sit with sometimes because we were friends. He eventually asked me to the junior prom, but I had to turn him down politely because I was already going with someone I liked. When Mia found out about this, she made a huge fuss. She told my parents that I always take things she wants and accused me of intentionally flirting with this guy for months. She called me a bunch of hurtful names that no sister should say to another, and even told my parents she wished I wasn't her sister. My mom sided with Mia and scolded me, saying that I should have respected the girl code. I tried to explain that I wasn't interested in the guy and had declined his invitation, so Mia was free to ask him herself if she wanted. But Mia wouldn't let it go. Looking back, I think she was just upset because she knew the guy would likely have turned her down anyway. So she took her frustration out on me since he had asked me instead. One day, my dad took me out for ice cream, which was a rare treat and something I was really looking forward to. However, during our outing, he started asking me some strange questions. He asked if my boyfriend and I were being careful, if my boyfriend came from a good family, and if we were using drugs. I was shocked by these questions and asked him why he was asking me this. That's when my dad revealed that Mia had been telling them that I was doing drugs and drinking alcohol with my boyfriend. This was a complete lie. I showed my dad my phone to prove that Mia was making things up. Later, when my dad confronted Mia about the lies, she tried to justify her behavior by saying that no one our age simply hangs out with a guy and that I must be hiding something. I was furious and yelled at her, telling her it wasn't my fault she didn't have anyone to date and that she needed to stay out of my business. Mia didn't handle this well. Out of nowhere, she punched me. It was the first time she had ever been physically violent. My nose started bleeding and I fell to the ground in pain. My parents rushed me to the emergency room, pleading with me not to file a police report against Mia. They said it would ruin her life, while I sat in the back seat, clutching my face. Mia showed no concern and didn't apologize. When the nurse asked me about what happened, I told her the truth. She ended up calling Child Protective Investigator. My parents were furious with me for involving Child Protective Investigator, viewing it as a betrayal. They insisted that Mia's actions were just an isolated incident and shouldn't warrant such drastic measures. They begged the authorities to overlook it, claiming Mia wasn't a danger to me and that her actions were out of character. In the end, Mia was not taken away, but Child Protective Investigator warned my parents that they would keep an eye on our situation. Mia and my parents were clearly shaken. My parents told me they were disappointed in me for trying to ruin my sister's life. My mom cried and accused me of tearing the family apart by involving outsiders. My dad's disappointment was evident as he questioned why I escalated the situation. I stood firm, telling them that I wanted Mia out of my life. They eventually agreed, though I felt guilty for involving the authorities. For the first time, I felt safer in my own home once Mia had been formally warned. After this incident, Mia stopped talking to me completely, and I was relieved. I preferred this distance over her constant presence and attempts to interfere in my life. When my grandparents learned about everything, they invited me to move in with them for the rest of high school. My parents didn't protest much, so I moved in with my grandparents. Here, I finally felt safe and loved. The remainder of high school went well, and I made many lasting memories with my friends. Throughout this time, my parents never visited or called me. I knew they were content with their favorite daughter, so I didn't reach out to them, despite the pain it caused me. The way my parents could so easily disregard me was devastating. When I graduated high school, they only showed up to cheer for Mia. They didn't congratulate me or even approach me, making me feel like a complete stranger to them. My grandparents, however, were there for me. They were so disappointed with my parents' blatant favoritism that they scolded them. I'm not sure what my grandfather said, but after that, my dad awkwardly came up to me and congratulated me on my graduation. Soon after, I received wonderful news. I had been accepted into a great college with a full scholarship. I was thrilled, especially because I had been dreading asking my parents for financial help. I shared the news with my grandparents, and they took me out to a nice restaurant to celebrate. My grandmother even posted pictures of me on Facebook, writing a heartfelt caption about how proud she was of me and my achievements. Our relatives saw the post and began congratulating me, which might have prompted some of them to reach out to my parents. Instead of being pleased, my mother called me the next day with upsetting news. She told me that Mia was locked in her room, crying because she hadn't been accepted into any colleges yet. My mother accused me of trying to make Mia feel bad by sharing my good news with our relatives. She claimed it was my fault Mia was struggling academically and emotionally after the Child Protective Investigator incident. I was heartbroken that my mother could blame me for Mia's problems. This was the last straw, and I decided not to speak with her for a long time. My grandparents helped me move into my college dorm. My high school boyfriend and I had broken up because his college was far away, so I started college single. I was excited to begin this new chapter of my life with newfound independence. Although the breakup was tough, I was eager to meet new people. It was during this time that I met Mark. We were both freshmen and spent a lot of time in the library. Mark was unlike anyone I had met before. His quiet demeanor and dedication to studying matched my own, and we quickly bonded over our shared love for academics. As the months passed, our friendship grew into something deeper. I realized I had developed feelings for Mark that went beyond friendship. Being outgoing, I decided to express my feelings to him, and I was delighted to discover that he felt the same way. We started dating, and our relationship has now lasted for 8 wonderful years. My grandparents have met Mark and absolutely adore him. I've also met Mark's parents, who treat me like their own daughter. Mark's mother has even told me that she's always wanted a daughter, so she's thrilled that Mark found someone like me. For the first time, I feel surrounded by family members who genuinely like and support me. I've shared stories of my childhood with Mark, and he listens with empathy and understanding. Over these 8 years, my parents have rarely contacted me, except for an occasional birthday text, if they remembered. Recently, Mark and I got engaged. He proposed to me during one of our favorite sunrise treks, and it was an incredibly sweet moment. I was overjoyed and accepted his proposal without any doubts. I posted our engagement pictures on Instagram and informed my grandparents, who were thrilled for us and offered their congratulations. The news must have reached my parents because they called me out of the blue to congratulate me. I was surprised, as we hadn't spoken much over the years. During the call, they asked about my life, my jobs, and my apartment. Then my dad asked if he could walk me down the aisle. I was taken aback by the sudden request, especially since he had only recently learned about my jobs. I told him I hadn't decided yet. My dad then mentioned how it would be awkward if I didn't ask him, and others might question it. My parents' request for me to have my dad walk me down the aisle was surprising. They said it would be better if he did, but I was frustrated by their sudden interest, especially since they hadn't been involved in my life for years. I told them I wasn't even sure if I wanted to invite them to the wedding, given our lack of contact. This angered my parents. My mother expressed her disappointment, emphasizing the importance of family and tradition. She reminded me that they would always be my parents, and I should let go of past grievances. Part of me wanted to accept their offer and mend our relationship, but another part was wary of opening myself up to more hurt. As I was about to start a new chapter in my life, I decided to let my dad walk me down the aisle. He seemed genuinely happy, which was a relief. During wedding planning, I reached out to my high school friends, who I had stayed in touch with despite the physical distance caused by our careers. I asked them to be my bridesmaids, and there were lots of happy tears and congratulations. They eagerly accepted, thrilled to reunite and celebrate this milestone together. We planned a fun bachelorette party in Vegas, while Mark had his own separate celebration with his friends. We took tons of pictures and had a blast. However, when I returned home, my parents called to express their disappointment that I hadn't invited Mia to be part of the celebration. I told them flatly that there was no way I would involve Mia in my bachelorette party or my wedding. Her actions and past betrayals had deeply hurt me, and I couldn't imagine her presence adding anything positive to such an intimate event. I also explained that this was why she wasn't invited to the wedding either. My parents were outraged. They insisted that I had no right to exclude my sister from such an important occasion, and that it was my duty as her sister to include her. They mentioned that Mia had been looking forward to seeing me now that I was getting married, but I was confused since we hadn't spoken in ages. My parents dismissed my concerns, saying that sisters should always support each other. I tried to explain that my relationship with Mia was complicated and that I didn't feel comfortable having her at my wedding, especially since she had never apologized for her actions. But as usual, my parents ignored my feelings. My mother continued to insist that inviting Mia wasn't a big deal and was for the good of the family. My dad worried that our relatives would gossip about her absence and cast a negative light on the wedding. I stood firm in my decision, telling them I was okay with people talking behind my back as long as I was surrounded by people I trusted and liked on my wedding day. My mother then questioned whether Mark and my in-laws would be okay with this and warned that they might judge me for excluding my sister. I laughed and reassured my parents that Mark and his family were well aware of my family dynamics and wouldn't care about Mia's presence or absence. Despite their pleas for reconsideration, emphasizing family unity and forgiveness, I remained resolute. I wasn't willing to compromise my own peace of mind for the sake of pleasing others. We ended the conversation with a mutual agreement to disagree. My parents said they needed time to think things over. Feeling a bit guilty for standing up to them, I informed my grandparents about the situation. They completely supported my decision and reassured me. My grandparents told me they understood my position and were proud of how I handled the situation. I had been feeling a bit better about my decision to not invite Mia and not let my parents guilt trip me. With the wedding coming up fast, I was focused on planning and preparing for the big day. Then, last week, my dad called with some surprising news. He said he and my mom had decided they would not be attending my wedding. Before I could react, he added that this also meant he wouldn't be walking me down the aisle. When I asked him why, he explained that Mia was moving to a new place, and since I had chosen not to invite her to the wedding, my parents had decided to attend her housewarming party instead. I was stunned and hurt. The fact that Mia's housewarming took precedence over my wedding was incredibly painful and felt like a betrayal. I managed to keep my composure and told my dad I understood before ending the call. Although I tried to stay strong in front of my dad, I felt deeply rejected. When I told Mark about the call, he was furious. He couldn't believe how insensitive my parents were being, especially after insisting on being invited. Mark suggested I ask my grandparents to walk me down the aisle instead. He reminded me how much they had been there for me, more than my own parents had. I took Mark's advice and reached out to my grandparents. As I asked them if they would be willing to walk me down the aisle, I could barely hold back tears. I told them how much they meant to me, saying, "You and Grandpa have always been there for me. You've been more like parents than just grandparents. I can't imagine anyone else I'd rather have by my side on my wedding day." Without hesitation, my grandparents agreed. They were honored and excited to take part in my special day. Their reassurance filled me with a sense of peace and comfort. I knew I had a family who loved me unconditionally and accepted me for who I was. I also spoke to Mark's parents, who assured me that they didn't mind if my parents didn't come and were thrilled to support us regardless. My wedding is in 3 days. This morning, I woke up to several missed calls from my dad. When I called him back, he asked if it was true that my grandparents would be walking me down the aisle. I confirmed that it was. He then launched into a tirade about how disrespectful it was for me to have asked my grandparents. He insisted that by declining to come to the wedding, he and Mom were trying to teach me a lesson. He said they had raised me and paid for my education, so my grandparents had no right to take his place. I tried to explain that my grandparents had been there for me in ways he and Mom never had, but he wouldn't listen. He accused me of alienating everyone and said it was all my fault. After our conversation, I've been questioning whether I did something wrong by asking my grandparents to walk me down the aisle. I've come to the difficult decision that I need to cut off my parents permanently. Their constant back and forth behavior has become exhausting and is affecting my mental health. I can't continue being in their lives when it's clear that Mia will always be their top priority. I've known for a long time that my parents are selfish, but it's hard to stop loving them, especially when it comes to family. It's easy to say you'll cut someone off, but actually doing it is incredibly challenging. For my own peace of mind, though, I have no choice but to take this step so I can fully enjoy my wedding tomorrow. With my grandparents by my side as I walked down the aisle, I felt immense joy as I exchanged vows with Mark and committed to spending the rest of my life with him. My girlfriends and I had an amazing time dancing and celebrating. It was a reminder of how crucial it is to stay connected with childhood friends. Sometimes they become your chosen family. During the reception, I did feel a pang of sadness, knowing that my parents weren't there to share in this special moment. Watching Mark's parents and cousins give heartfelt speeches made me realize what I was missing out on. However, I took comfort in knowing that I made the right decision for myself. Prioritizing my well-being and happiness was the best choice, despite the absence of my parents. My girlfriends gave beautiful speeches, reminiscing about our shared experiences and the bond that has supported us through both good and bad times. After the wedding, Mark and I went on our honeymoon, which was a generous gift from his parents. We spent our days relaxing and enjoying each other's company. I still feel a thrill whenever I look at Mark and realize that we're married. As I mentioned before, I did end up cutting off my parents by blocking them on all platforms. I didn't feel the need to send them an explanation. Frankly, they don't deserve one. I'm not sure if Mia actually had a housewarming party or if it was just an excuse for my parents to avoid my wedding. But at this point, I don't care. I wish them and their favorite daughter the best. I hadn't checked my email for a month due to my wedding and honeymoon, but today, while sorting through my inbox, I came across an email from Mia. I was shocked and confused about how she found my email address. Part of me wanted to delete it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it. The email was a long message from Mia expressing regret over our strained relationship and a desire to reconcile. She admitted to past mistakes, acknowledging her selfishness and immaturity. Mia apologized for the pain she caused me and expressed a genuine wish to make amends. She wrote that she's happy for me now that I'm married and wished me the best. She ended the email by asking me not to punish my parents and said they missed me. Reading her words, I felt a swirl of emotions: surprise, skepticism, and a bit of hope. Part of me wants to believe that Maya has genuinely changed and is sincere in her apology. However, another part of me remains cautious because this all seems too good to be true. Regardless of her apology, I know my parents don't miss me. If they did, they wouldn't have treated me the way they did over the years. I considered replying to Mia, but decided against it for now. Forgiveness is a process that takes time and reflection. I'm not sure if I'm ready to forgive Mia, but I don't want to completely sever ties either, especially since she's the one who reached out with an apology. After my wedding, I no longer feel alone. I have Mark, my supportive friends, and the unwavering love of my grandparents. With their support, I feel confident I can face any future challenges without needing Mia or my parents in my life. I've also found a good therapist and scheduled my first appointment. This step will help me address and heal from any past wounds. Over the years, but then quickly transitioned into asking for a favor. She hesitantly suggested that I sell one of my properties to help finance her daughter's college education. I was taken aback by the audacity of her request, given the years of dedication and sacrifice my wife and I had put into building our portfolio for our family's future. I kindly explained that while I empathized with her situation, our properties were committed to securing our own children's futures and were not available for sale for such purposes. Ellie became noticeably upset by my refusal and accused me of being selfish, arguing that her daughter's education was a worthwhile investment and that I could easily afford it given my assets. I remained firm but polite, reiterating the importance of these properties to my family's security and the unfeasibility of her request. Despite my attempts to maintain a professional demeanor, Ellie's frustration only grew. She began to spread false accusations within our community, claiming that I was hindering her daughter's future for my greed. This put me in a very uncomfortable position, as I valued my reputation and had always strived to be a fair and understanding landlord. As the situation escalated, I realized that I needed to address these false claims to protect my family's interests and my professional integrity. I sought legal advice to ensure that all communications with Ellie were documented and that I was prepared for any further actions she might consider. Meanwhile, I continued to provide her with the same level of service as a landlord, keeping our interactions strictly professional to avoid any misunderstandings. This experience was a stark reminder of the unpredictability in dealing with tenants and the importance of maintaining clear boundaries. It also reinforced the value of the hard-earned stability my wife and I had created through our real estate investments, a stability we aimed to pass down to our children, ensuring they would not face the same financial struggles we once did. That selling my property was the only viable solution for her daughter's education. Despite the financial aid she had sought and her own extra work hours, she was facing the stark reality that her daughter's dream university was simply beyond her means. As Ellie shared these details, I empathized with her plight, but was shocked by her solution. She laid out her desperate situation. The tuition, room and board, and additional expenses for her daughter Zoe were overwhelming. Ellie had done her homework applying for scholarships, seeking financial aid, and working extra hours. Yet, even with all her efforts, the sums didn't add up. She was at her wit's end and, in a moment of desperation, turned to me with an unimaginable request to sell the home she rented from me to fund Zoe's education. I was floored by her proposal. "Are you serious?" I asked, disbelief coloring my tone. Ellie's eyes conveyed her earnestness as she pleaded her case, believing the sale of the house could completely cover her daughter's college expenses. She had even had the property appraised in anticipation. Rejecting her idea was difficult, but necessary. I explained to Ellie that the properties I owned were not just investments, but symbols of years of hard work and personal sacrifice. They were meant to secure my own family's future, and it was not feasible to sell one for her purposes. I suggested she explore other avenues, additional financial aid, loans that Zoe could repay in the future, or perhaps a less expensive educational institution. Yet, Ellie was fixated on the idea that selling my property was the simplest solution, viewing it as a straightforward transaction that could solve her financial woes. As our conversation continued, it became clear that Ellie was not going to easily let go of this idea. Her determination was palpable, but so was her disregard for the implications such a sale would have on my life and financial planning. I left the meeting feeling unsettled, having firmly declined her request, but troubled by her distress. In the weeks that followed, Ellie's desperation only intensified. She began a rent strike as a form of protest, hoping to pressure me into selling. Our relationship, once cordial and cooperative, deteriorated rapidly. Every encounter was strained. Ellie continued to push her agenda, and I remained steadfast in my refusal. The situation was regrettable. I understood the importance of education and empathized with her desire to provide for her daughter, but the burden of financing the education could not and should not fall on me. The experience was a harsh reminder of the complexities of financial desperation and the lengths to which it could drive a person. However, it also reinforced my resolve to protect my investments and the financial stability of my own family, which I had worked so hard to establish. Ellie was convinced that selling my property was the solution to her financial challenges. She viewed my refusal as selfish and believed it jeopardized her daughter's future. Meanwhile, I was losing money as she withheld rent in protest. I warned her that we could resolve this in court given our legally binding lease, but she remained defiant, escalating her demands. The situation took a turn when Ellie began involving others. She reached out to friends and neighbors, painting me as an unsympathetic landlord unwilling to help a young girl achieve her dreams. Claiming I was wealthy, she portrayed herself as a struggling single mother, a narrative that garnered sympathy from many in our community. To amplify her cause, Ellie took to social media, creating a post that blamed me directly for her daughter's inability to attend college. This sparked rumors and shifted public opinion in the neighborhood against me. I felt increasingly alienated in my own community, perceived as someone who could help but chose not to. In response to the growing tension, my wife decided to engage directly with Ellie, hoping to diffuse the situation through dialogue. However, Ellie was not receptive to a calm discussion. She was adamant that selling the property was the only way to secure her daughter's future and dismissed any other suggestions. She accused us of being selfish, claiming we had the means to assist but chose not to. This conversation spiraled into a repetitive loop of accusations, with Ellie urging my wife to persuade me to comply with her demands. Her social media post, which depicted me as a wealthy and uncaring landlord, significantly impacted our neighbors' perceptions. Some who had been friendly towards us now viewed us with suspicion, believing Ellie's narrative that I was willfully neglecting a young girl's educational aspirations. Others in the neighborhood who knew my backstory, my humble beginnings, and the hard work that went into building my property portfolio supported me. They understood the audacity of Ellie's request and encouraged me to protect my investments. They recognized that my properties were not just assets, but the result of years of sacrifice intended to secure my family's future. The community grew increasingly divided. Some expressed sympathy for Ellie, swayed by her portrayal of her plight, while others stood by me, appalled by her brazen demand for me to fund her daughter's education. Despite the mounting pressure, I remained resolute, committed to safeguarding my property and the legacy I had worked so hard to establish. I understood the importance of education, but I also knew that my responsibilities to my family and my financial stability had to come first. The conflict underscored the complex dynamics of community relationships and the profound impacts of financial desperation. As Ellie continued to stoke the fires of our dispute, her accusations grew harsher. She painted me as an unempathetic landlord exploiting her by letting her live rent-free while she publicly aired her grievances. Her posts on social media, which highlighted her daughter's determination and sacrifices for college, turned our private disagreement into a very public ordeal. This resulted in increased scrutiny and began to affect my family deeply. The allegations led to my children facing bullying at school, where they were confronted with the false narrative spread about me. This situation became unbearable when I saw the toll it was taking on my kids. Initially, I had hoped Ellie would see reason and stop her campaign, but as my family's distress grew, I knew I had to act decisively to defend our integrity and restore peace. I consulted with a lawyer who specialized in real estate and landlord-tenant disputes. Together, we drafted a cease and desist letter to immediately halt Ellie's defamatory actions. My lawyer explained that this was just the first step, and if Ellie persisted, we were prepared to escalate matters to court. When Ellie received the cease and desist letter, she was shocked and quickly tried to reach out by phone. I didn't respond to her calls, so she texted, suggesting we could resolve the issue amicably and that it had all been a huge misunderstanding. However, given the extent of the situation, I replied, clarifying my stance. I was prepared to go to court if necessary. I warned her to brace herself, expressing my resolve not to let her manipulation affect my family any longer. This conflict, while challenging, highlighted Ellie's relentless pursuit to have me cover her daughter's tuition, an expectation that placed undue strain on us and tainted our family's reputation both locally and online. My lawyer was preparing for a potential trial, gathering evidence of the false accusations and detailing the emotional and reputational damage caused over the past months. Some of my relatives, upon learning about the lawsuit, suggested I reconsider given Ellie's status as a single mother trying to support her child. However, I felt that capitulating would only validate her inappropriate demands and continue to compromise our well-being. Ellie responded to the legal notice with more threats and defamation, accusing me of charging excessive rent, which she claimed hindered her ability to save for her daughter's education. Her narrative seemed designed to paint herself as a victim while ignoring the fact that she had been benefiting from substantially reduced rent for years. It was frustrating to witness her twist the facts to garner sympathy and support. My lawyer, William, assured me we had a solid case. He was diligently preparing for the possibility that Ellie wouldn't back down, ensuring we were ready to defend our rights and reclaim our peace. The upcoming legal battle appeared inevitable, and while daunting, it was necessary to protect our family's legacy and stand against the unwarranted demands and false accusations threatening our livelihood. Showing documentation of all communications and transactions between Ellie and me. These records clearly demonstrated that there was never any promise or agreement to sell the property, which contradicted the claims made by Ellie's witness. As the legal battle continued, the strain of the process became evident. Despite Ellie's emotional testimony and her portrayal as a struggling single mother, my attorney was meticulous in revealing the flaws and inconsistencies in her story. It was clear that the accusations against me were not only unfounded, but also manipulated to gain public sympathy and legal leverage. My lawyer, William, had prepared extensively for this case, understanding that the legal process would be long and challenging. He had warned me to brace myself for the exhausting details and the emotional toll it would take. Throughout the proceedings, I couldn't help but reflect on how quickly things had escalated from a simple landlord-tenant relationship to a full-blown court case. It was never my intention to end up in a courtroom, but I found myself having to defend not only my property, but also my integrity. During the court sessions, it was apparent that Ellie's lawyer was trying to paint me as a wealthy and heartless landlord who prioritized profits over a young girl's dreams. They repeatedly emphasized the high rent, suggesting that I was exploiting Ellie's financial situation. However, my attorney countered these claims effectively, showcasing that the rent charged was fair and that I had even provided subsidized rates to assist Ellie, which she had conveniently omitted from her narrative. As we presented our side, I remained firm in my conviction that I was in the right. Protecting my property and ensuring the financial security of my family was my priority. Ellie might have felt justified in her actions due to her desperate circumstances, but it was clear that her methods were crossing the line. The turning point in the case came when William cross-examined Ellie's witness. The witness struggled to provide consistent answers and failed to corroborate their story with any tangible evidence. Under William's skilled questioning, the credibility of the witness and the validity of their testimony deteriorated. This was crucial in shifting the momentum of the case in our favor. In addition to debunking the false testimony, William presented our own evidence, which included a detailed log of all interactions with Ellie, backed by emails and text messages. These documents illustrated our consistent and fair dealings with her, countering the image of exploitation that Ellie's side tried to project. As the legal proceedings drew on, the community's perception began to shift. Those who had initially sided with Ellie based on her public appeals and emotional narrative started to see the other side of the story. The evidence clearly outlined the lengths I had gone to in order to be a fair and responsible landlord. The courtroom drama was a harsh reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the ways in which personal desperation can lead to dramatic escalations. Despite the challenges, I was determined to see the process through to preserve my rights and protect the future I had worked so hard to build for my family. During the legal proceedings, we introduced detailed records of text messages and emails between Ellie and myself. These documents crucially showed that there was never any discussion about selling my property to finance her daughter's education. Instead, it was clear from the communication that Ellie was pressuring me to sell the property so she could borrow the money. To strengthen our case, a neighbor who lived next to Ellie's property testified that she had been paying significantly less rent compared to other tenants in the area. My attorney, William, presented receipts from other tenants to further substantiate this point. This evidence helped to demonstrate that Ellie's claims about high rent were unfounded. Moreover, the absence of any written or electronic communication regarding the supposed promise to sell the property, coupled with the neighbor's testimony, cast doubt on the family friend's account and undermined its credibility as evidence. William also highlighted how Ellie had used social media to slander my reputation. He presented a comprehensive record of her posts, where she painted herself as a struggling mother, while unfairly portraying me as an unfeeling landlord. These posts were strategically designed to evoke sympathy from the community and rally public support against me. Screenshots of social media comments and direct messages from individuals influenced by Ellie's narrative were also presented. Many from the local community had formed negative opinions based on her misleading posts. The comments varied from expressions of sympathy towards Ellie to severe accusations against me, depicting me as someone exploiting her difficult situation. Witness testimonies from my children were particularly impactful. They recounted how they faced bullying at school due to Ellie's social media campaign. Their peers had echoed the distorted claims seen online, leading to name-calling and harassment. This testimony was pivotal in showing the direct effects of Ellie's actions, linking her false public assertions to the tangible harm they caused my family. William argued convincingly that the intentionally misleading narrative crafted by Ellie had not only damaged my reputation, but also had real-life consequences for my family's well-being. This comprehensive presentation of evidence was key in demonstrating the extent of the impact Ellie's actions had on us. As the legal proceedings continued, I remained confident in the strength of our case and the justice system. The evidence presented so far clearly illuminated the truth and effectively exposed the baselessness of the claims made against me. I believe that the court would recognize the manipulation at play and would ensure a fair resolution. I consulted with a lawyer who specialized in real estate and landlord-tenant disputes. Together, we drafted a cease and desist letter to immediately halt Ellie's defamatory actions. My lawyer explained that this was just the first step, and if Ellie persisted, we were prepared to escalate matters to court. When Ellie received the cease and desist letter, she was shocked and quickly tried to reach out by phone. I didn't respond to her calls, so she texted, suggesting we could resolve the issue amicably and that it had all been a huge misunderstanding. However, given the extent of the situation, I replied, clarifying my stance. I was prepared to go to court if necessary. I warned her to brace herself, expressing my resolve not to let her manipulation affect my family any longer. This conflict, while challenging, highlighted Ellie's relentless pursuit to have me cover her daughter's tuition, an expectation that placed undue strain on us and tainted our family's reputation both locally and online. My lawyer was preparing for a potential trial, gathering evidence of the false accusations and detailing the emotional and reputational damage caused over the past months. Some of my relatives, upon learning about the lawsuit, suggested I reconsider given Ellie's status as a single mother trying to support her child. However, I felt that capitulating would only validate her inappropriate demands and continue to compromise our well-being. Ellie responded to the legal notice with more threats and defamation, accusing me of charging excessive rent, which she claimed hindered her ability to save for her daughter's education. Her narrative seemed designed to paint herself as a victim while ignoring the fact that she had been benefiting from substantially reduced rent for years. It was frustrating to witness her twist the facts to garner sympathy and support. My lawyer, William, assured me we had a solid case. He was diligently preparing for the possibility that Ellie wouldn't back down, ensuring we were ready to defend our rights and reclaim our peace. The upcoming legal battle appeared inevitable, and while daunting, it was necessary to protect our family's legacy and stand against the unwarranted demands and false accusations threatening our livelihood, showing documentation of all communications and transactions between Ellie and me. These records clearly demonstrated that there was never any promise or agreement to sell the property, which contradicted the claims made by Ellie's witness. As the legal battle continued, the strain of the process became evident. Despite Ellie's emotional testimony and her portrayal as a struggling single mother, my attorney was meticulous in revealing the flaws and inconsistencies in her story. It was clear that the accusations against me were not only unfounded, but also manipulated to gain public sympathy and legal leverage. My lawyer, William, had prepared extensively for this case, understanding that the legal process would be long and challenging. He had warned me to brace myself for the exhausting details and the emotional toll it would take. Throughout the proceedings, I couldn't help but reflect on how quickly things had escalated from a simple landlord-tenant relationship to a full-blown court case. It was never my intention to end up in a courtroom, but I found myself having to defend not only my property, but also my integrity. During the court sessions, it was apparent that Ellie's lawyer was trying to paint me as a wealthy and heartless landlord who prioritized profits over a young girl's dreams. They repeatedly emphasized the high rent, suggesting that I was exploiting Ellie's financial situation. However, my attorney countered these claims effectively, showcasing that the rent charged was fair and that I had even provided subsidized rates to assist Ellie, which she had conveniently omitted from her narrative. As we presented our side, I remained firm in my conviction that I was in the right. Protecting my property and ensuring the financial security of my family was my priority. Ellie might have felt justified in her actions due to her desperate circumstances, but it was clear that her methods were crossing the line. The turning point in the case came when William cross-examined Ellie's witness. The witness struggled to provide consistent answers and failed to corroborate their story with any tangible evidence. Under William's skilled questioning, the credibility of the witness and the validity of their testimony deteriorated. This was crucial in shifting the momentum of the case in our favor. In addition to debunking the false testimony, William presented our own evidence, which included a detailed log of all interactions with Ellie, backed by emails and text messages. These documents illustrated our consistent and fair dealings with her, countering the image of exploitation that Ellie's side tried to project. As the legal proceedings drew on, the community's perception began to shift. Those who had initially sided with Ellie based on her public appeals and emotional narrative started to see the other side of the story. The evidence clearly outlined the lengths I had gone to in order to be a fair and responsible landlord. The courtroom drama was a harsh reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the ways in which personal desperation can lead to dramatic escalations. Despite the challenges, I was determined to see the process through to preserve my rights and protect the future I had worked so hard to build for my family. During the legal proceedings, we introduced detailed records of text messages and emails between Ellie and myself. These documents crucially showed that there was never any discussion about selling my property to finance her daughter's education. Instead, it was clear from the communication that Ellie was pressuring me to sell the property so she could borrow the money. To strengthen our case, a neighbor who lived next to Ellie's property testified that she had been paying significantly less rent compared to other tenants in the area. My attorney, William, presented receipts from other tenants to further substantiate this point. This evidence helped to demonstrate that Ellie's claims about high rent were unfounded. Moreover, the absence of any written or electronic communication regarding the supposed promise to sell the property, coupled with the neighbor's testimony, cast doubt on the family friend's account and undermined its credibility as evidence. William also highlighted how Ellie had used social media to slander my reputation. He presented a comprehensive record of her posts, where she painted herself as a struggling mother, while unfairly portraying me as an unfeeling landlord. These posts were strategically designed to evoke sympathy from the community and rally public support against me. Screenshots of social media comments and direct messages from individuals influenced by Ellie's narrative were also presented. Many from the local community had formed negative opinions based on her misleading posts. The comments varied from expressions of sympathy towards Ellie to severe accusations against me, depicting me as someone exploiting her difficult situation. Witness testimonies from my children were particularly impactful. They recounted how they faced bullying at school due to Ellie's social media campaign. Their peers had echoed the distorted claims seen online, leading to name-calling and harassment. This testimony was pivotal in showing the direct effects of Ellie's actions, linking her false public assertions to the tangible harm they caused my family. William argued convincingly that the intentionally misleading narrative crafted by Ellie had not only damaged my reputation, but also had real-life consequences for my family's well-being. This comprehensive presentation of evidence was key in demonstrating the extent of the impact Ellie's actions had on us. As the legal proceedings continued, I remained confident in the strength of our case and the justice system. The evidence presented so far clearly illuminated the truth and effectively exposed the baselessness of the claims made against me. I believe that the court would recognize the manipulation at play and would ensure a fair resolution. As a 17-year-old college student, I've always felt a bit disconnected from my family, largely due to our differing personalities and expectations. Despite my efforts to excel academically and even earning a scholarship, my family's approval has remained elusive, especially in contrast to my younger sister, who has always been the favored one. Over the years, I managed to save $90,000 for my college education through part-time 2 jobs and scholarships. This money represented not just my hard work, but my future independence. However, my parents viewed it differently. Recently, they informed me that my sister, who is 22 and currently unemployed, needed a new apartment in a high-end area. Despite her lack of financial contribution, they expected me to give up my entire savings to help her. The demand was made bluntly and without room for negotiation. My refusal, they warned, would result in me being disowned. My parents tried to justify their request by saying that supporting family comes first, and that I should be willing to help my sister unconditionally. The emotional pressure was intense, and I initially found myself speechless and overwhelmed by the unfairness of their demand. As I considered my limited options, I realized how wrong it was to sacrifice my future for someone who had not shown the same dedication or responsibility. The thought of giving in crossed my mind, simply to maintain peace. But the more I pondered, the clearer it became that I could not let my hard-earned independence be taken so easily. Determined to stand my ground, I began to safeguard my legal rights and personal documents. I quietly moved my valuables to a friend's house, preparing for the possibility of having to leave my family home. It was a daunting prospect, but I knew I had to be ready for any outcome, including the worst-case scenario of estrangement from my family. This decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary to protect my future and uphold my values. So, I decided to reach out to my college's housing office to explore any emergency housing options they might offer. Although they didn't have immediate accommodations, they did provide information on local resources that could assist in times of need. It wasn't much, but it gave me a starting point. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents with a clear stance. I would not surrender my savings. The response was explosive. My father accused me of selfishness and ingratitude, while my mother tearfully claimed I was tearing our family apart over what she trivialized as a little money. If it was indeed trivial, I wondered why they couldn't cover the expense themselves. During this confrontation, my sister Ellie had an outburst, accusing me of ruining her life and disregarding her happiness. The atmosphere at home grew increasingly toxic. My parents' communication was either filled with guilt-laden remarks or cold silence. My mother stopped talking to me altogether, while my father made cutting remarks whenever I appeared. Ellie acted as though I had personally betrayed her. Despite their continuous threats and emotional manipulation, I stayed firm and began to secretly move my valuables to a friend's house, preparing for an imminent departure. I also reached out to other friends to keep them informed, and they offered their support, suggesting I consider legal action if necessary. The situation escalated when I discovered my parents had attempted to access my bank account, planning to withdraw my savings without my consent. Anticipating such a move, I had already secured my funds by emptying and closing the account. Confronted with their failed attempt, their anger erupted. My father branded me ungrateful and destructive to our family. My mother's response was to lament and question how I could do this to them. I stood my ground, informing them that they had crossed a line and that I was done being victimized. If they wanted me out, I would leave, but not a penny of my money would go with me. To ensure that my side of the story was heard, I took to social media. I posted a detailed account of the events, including their demand for my savings, their threats, and their emotional tactics. I shared screenshots of their texts and the bank alert showing their attempt to access my account. I tagged not just my immediate family, but also their friends and extended family members to expose the truth widely. The response was immediate and largely supportive. Most people sided with me, criticizing my parents and sister for their actions. Shocked and disappointed, some extended family members who were previously unaware of the depth of the issue reached out. Although a few of my parents' close friends attempted to defend them, they were mostly overshadowed by the overwhelming criticism. News of the situation spread quickly, affecting my parents' social and professional lives. Colleagues began to view my father differently, leading to strained work relationships, and my mother found herself increasingly ostracized from her social circles. As for Ellie, her plans for the new apartment crumbled when the landlord learned of the controversy, leaving her furious and blaming me. But by then, I was resolute, no longer concerned with their reproaches as they faced the consequences of their own actions. The facade of a perfect family was irreparably broken, illustrating the profound impacts of their choices. After the intense confrontation, I moved in with a supportive friend. Although it wasn't the perfect setup, it was a significant improvement from the toxic atmosphere at home. Living independently was challenging but incredibly liberating. I could concentrate on my studies and plan my future without the constant fear of my family attempting to exploit me further. The aftermath of my decision did not sit well with my parents. My phone was bombarded with a mix of threatening and pleading messages, urging me to delete the public post and return home. They even attempted to reshape the story, claiming they were only trying to help Ellie out of a tough spot. However, the truth was already out, and my decision to cut contact was firm. I blocked them on all communication platforms and even consulted a lawyer about securing a restraining order if necessary. This step was hard, but crucial for my peace of mind. During this period, some distant relatives came forward, offering support and expressing regret for not intervening earlier. My college, upon learning of my circumstances, extended additional financial aid, which came as a massive relief. This challenging journey brought significant personal growth. I became more confident and self-reliant, and my academic performance improved significantly now that the constant family-induced stress was gone. I also forged new friendships and established a dependable support network. Looking forward, my goal is to achieve complete financial independence, and I'm seriously considering permanently severing ties with my family. The cycle of toxicity needed to end, and I was committed to breaking it. Building a future where I didn't have to constantly anticipate the next familial betrayal was essential. It's been 2 months since I first shared my story publicly. I appreciate all the support and advice I received, which helped me navigate these turbulent times. After moving out and going public, my life became a whirlwind. My parents and Ellie reacted poorly, oscillating between anger and attempts at emotional manipulation. I adhered strictly to my no-contact policy, although it was challenging. About a week after I moved out, my mother unexpectedly showed up at my friend's place. Somehow, she had found out where I was staying. She was tearful, pleading for me to return home and insisting they wanted to make amends. However, her words soon turned to guilt trips about the damage I was causing to the family and how Ellie was suffering because of my actions. It was then I realized that nothing had fundamentally changed. I firmly told her to leave, threatening to call the police if she didn't. She left, but not without claiming that I was breaking her heart. The situation escalated further when my father tried contacting my college for information about my classes and whereabouts. Fortunately, I had already informed the administration of my situation, so they disclosed nothing. This attempt to track me unnerved me significantly. Ellie also began appearing at places she knew I would be, like the library and the coffee shop near campus, oscillating between angry outbursts and desperate pleas for the money. This confirmed that maintaining distance was the right decision. Moving forward, my focus is on building a life where I am no longer overshadowed by familial obligations or expectations. A life truly my own. After leaving home due to the escalating situation with my family, I had to alter my daily routines for safety, and even asked friends to accompany me to and from classes. About a month later, my aunt, my mom's sister, reached out wanting to meet. I was worried but agreed because she had always been kind to me. We planned to meet in a public spot, but to my dismay, I discovered she was acting on my parents' behalf. They were waiting nearby, hoping to confront me. Feeling deeply betrayed, I left immediately and decided to block my aunt's number as well. The narrative war continued on social media, where my parents tried to sway public opinion by labeling me a troubled child who had stolen from them and fled. Although a few believed their story, most recognized the truth. It was painful to see family, friends, and distant relatives taking sides, but I was thankful for those who supported me. Amidst this, Ellie escalated things by starting a GoFundMe campaign, claiming she was the victim of financial abuse, needing to escape a toxic family environment. Disturbingly, she twisted the narrative to portray me as the abuser. I had to engage a lawyer to have the campaign removed. My parents even threatened legal action against me, absurdly claiming I owed them for my upbringing and that they had rights to my savings. This was enough to alarm me, prompting me to seek legal counsel. My lawyer reassured me they had no valid case, but advised me to continue documenting everything as a precaution. 5.5 months after my departure, I received an unexpected email from William Ellie's ex-boyfriend. He apologized for not reaching out sooner and expressed his support. William shared insights into Ellie's behavior during their relationship, revealing she had cheated on him frequently with men who would lavish her with expensive gifts and trips. He also informed me that Ellie had been fired from her last job for stealing, a fact my parents had concealed by compensating her employer to avoid charges. Learning this, I was infuriated by the double standards my parents upheld, protecting Ellie while expecting me to forfeit my hard-earned savings. 3 months post-leaving, a call came from an unknown number. It was my grandfather, my dad's father. We weren't close, he lived in another state, and our interactions were infrequent. He had heard about the family issues from a cousin and wanted to hear my side. Initially cautious, I found his concern genuine. He shared his own strained history with my father and apologized for his absence in my life, even offering financial support if needed. I appreciated his gesture, but expressed my desire to be self-reliant. He respected my decision, but left the offer open. This conversation with my grandfather piqued my curiosity about other estranged family members. I reached out to a couple of cousins on my mom's side. One of them, Megan, shared her own difficult experiences with my parents and Ellie. She revealed a particularly upsetting incident from a few years back. During a tough divorce, she needed temporary housing. My parents initially agreed to help, but Ellie's complaints quickly changed their stance. leaving Megan in a difficult position. This revelation added another layer to my frustration, confirming the long-standing pattern of self-centered behavior by Ellie, supported by my parents. It was a lot to process, but understanding the full extent of their actions solidified my resolve to maintain distance and build a new life on my own terms. Ellie didn't want Megan in her space, and as a result, my parents evicted Megan after just 5 days, forcing her to rely on friends' couches until she found a place of her own. It was disheartening to see how they treated other family members while expecting me to sacrifice everything for Ellie. Meanwhile, I was grappling with my own housing issues. I stayed temporarily with my friend's parents, who were incredibly hospitable, but I knew this couldn't be a long-term arrangement. I began searching for an affordable apartment near my campus, but the prices were beyond what I could afford. A few days into my apartment hunt, I encountered one of Ellie's friends at a grocery store. She attempted to guilt-trip me, claiming Ellie was depressed and it was all my fault. When I questioned her if she knew the full story, she admitted she only knew Ellie's version. I shared my perspective, and I could see doubt begin to cloud her expression. She left looking puzzled, and although it was a small victory, it felt satisfying to convey my side of the story. The next day brought more challenges. I received a call from my bank alerting me that someone had tried to access my new account using my social security number. The bank flagged the attempt as suspicious and blocked it. I was almost certain it was my parents' doing. Shaken by their audacity, I filed a police report and initiated a credit freeze to safeguard my finances. Realizing the severity of their actions, I decided to take legal measures. I revisited the lawyer I had previously consulted and began the process of obtaining a restraining order against my parents and Ellie. It was a drastic measure, but I felt I had no other option. The day before the restraining order hearing, my mother called me in a panic, crying and pleading for me to reconsider, claiming it would destroy the family. I reminded her of their actions and ended the call. The hearing was intense. My parents and Ellie arrived with their lawyer, trying to depict me as an ungrateful, troubled child against a loving family. However, I was prepared with texts, emails, social media posts, and bank records as evidence. The judge saw through their facade and granted the restraining order. As I left the courthouse, Ellie approached me, looking disheveled and worn out. She began to apologize, but her expression quickly turned bitter, and she spitefully remarked that I had ruined everyone's lives. A friend intervened and led her away. It was the last time I saw her. Amid these events, I also started looking for a part-time job to support myself. Balancing work and school was challenging, but being financially independent felt empowering. I won't pretend it hasn't been tough. There are days I miss having a family, even a dysfunctional one, particularly during holidays. It's been about a year since these events unfolded, and I'm still processing everything that's happened. But I'm moving forward, buoyed by the support from friends and others who've reached out during this journey. Recently, my uncle, my dad's brother, whom I've never been close with, called me unexpectedly. He sounded genuinely concerned, informing me that things had worsened for my parents and Ellie. Apparently, Ellie had gotten entangled with some questionable characters and now found herself in a precarious situation involving debts. In a situation that's almost too surreal to believe, my parents, in what can only be described as a misguided attempt at salvation, took out a second mortgage on their house to pay off Ellie's accumulating debts. However, their efforts fell short. One distressing night, the people to whom Ellie owed money showed up at my parents' house, leading to a chaotic scene that ended with the police getting involved and my dad being hospitalized with a broken arm. Despite the chaos and consequences, my parents, true to form, continued to shield Ellie. They told the police that the incident was just a random break-in, although the truth quickly spread within the family. Shortly after this incident, my uncle reached out to inform me of these developments. Around the same time, I began receiving messages from my parents again. Against my better judgment, I unblocked them, thinking they might have changed. They pleaded for me to return home and help them. They even had the audacity to suggest that if I had just given them the money initially, none of this would have happened. Disheartened by their continued manipulation, I chose to ignore their pleas. Amidst this turmoil, I managed to save enough money to move out of my friend's house into a more secure apartment further from campus, but with the peace of mind I desperately needed. Unfortunately, the peace was short-lived. Ellie, disregarding the restraining order, showed up at my new apartment. She was distraught, crying and begging for money, claiming she was in danger. When I told her to leave, she accused me of being responsible for her potential harm. It was a harrowing encounter, and I contacted my lawyer immediately afterward to discuss extending the restraining order to include my new address. I also informed my landlord and neighbors about the potential risk posed by my family. Adding insult to injury, I discovered through other family members that my parents were spreading rumors that I had introduced Ellie to the shady individuals and that I owed them money. This baseless accusation caused some relatives to turn against me, leading to a slew of hateful messages on social media, which forced me to block several people. Despite these challenges, the past year has also brought positive changes. I've made some incredible friends who have become like a chosen family to me. We're even planning a celebration together, a testament to the support and solidarity I found in them. Recently, I've heard rumors that my parents are facing foreclosure on their house. While part of me feels sympathy for their plight, I can't help but recognize that their own actions have led them to this point. It's a stark reminder of how different things could have been if they had simply respected my boundaries and treated me fairly. As I continue to navigate this journey, the support I've received has been invaluable. I'm grateful for every bit of encouragement and solidarity, which has truly sustained me through these tumultuous times. Thank you all for standing by me. I couldn't have done it without your support. My older sister, Mia, who is 26, has always had difficulty accepting my happiness, seemingly envious of a life she believed I didn't deserve. Despite her beauty and intelligence, Mia's life took a tumultuous turn after she dropped out of college to marry a wealthy man who eventually left her after seeing her true nature. Now divorced and jobless, she lives with our parents. Growing up, Mia was the star in our family's eyes, always receiving their praises, which left me feeling inadequate and overlooked. Her constant taunts during our childhood amplified my insecurities, as she would mock me, saying that no one liked me. Her actions and words created a deep-rooted sense of insecurity in me, and any attempt to voice my feelings was dismissed by our parents, who seemed blind to her manipulative behavior. As we grew older, her narcissistic traits became more apparent. She engaged in several harmful antics, like sabotaging my school projects and using my phone to send embarrassing photos to my friends, all to maintain her superior status at home. Despite the occasional scolding from Dad, Mia never faced any real consequences, which only encouraged her behavior. Things started looking up for me after high school. I worked hard, got into my dream college, and eventually landed a job that brought me great fulfillment. It was there that I met Mark, a wonderful man who soon became my partner. Our relationship flourished, filled with travel and adventure, and I was cautious about introducing him to my family due to Mia's unpredictable nature. However, as our wedding approached, my worst fears materialized. Mia attempted to seduce Mark, an act caught on camera, which finally exposed her manipulative tendencies to everyone, including our parents. Shocked by her actions, they could no longer ignore the truth and had to confront the reality of her behavior, which led to her being disowned. This painful revelation, while difficult, brought us certain relief. It marked a turning point where I could finally step out from under the shadow of Mia's influence and embrace a life with Mark, free from the turmoil that had overshadowed my 2 years. Despite my relationship with Mark flourishing, I couldn't put off introducing him to my family any longer. After dating for a year and a half, Mark began to question my hesitation. So I spoke with my dad, who was thrilled to hear I'd found someone who he deemed worthy of me. He promptly invited us over for dinner. While I was excited, I also felt stressed knowing my sister Mia's tendency to disrupt my life. Aware of my family dynamics, I had a thorough conversation with Mark about the situation. He was understanding and reassured me that he would handle whatever came our way. A few days after talking to my dad, Mia unexpectedly called me. It was odd, considering she never reached out first. She was oddly inquisitive about Mark and my plans to visit home, clearly probing for information, likely prompted by our mom who'd mentioned my serious relationship. Mia's sudden warmth seemed strategic, and it raised alarms about her intentions. Concerned, I pondered whether introducing Mark to Mia was worth the risk or if it would be safer to have my parents visit us instead. Reflecting on Mia's history helps explain my caution. Her academic prowess was overshadowed by her obsession with appearance once she started college. During this time, she met William, a wealthy man, and quickly prioritized him over her studies. While I was preparing for my college entrance exams, Mia taunted me, claiming I'd never get into my dream school. Yet, when I did, and our parents celebrated my achievement, Mia couldn't handle the shift in attention. She impulsively announced her engagement to William during my celebration party, stealing the spotlight despite William's obvious surprise. Mia always flaunted the lavish gifts William gave her, taunting me by saying I'd never attract someone wealthy because of my looks. Her materialistic views were starkly opposed to my values. I believed in independence, not reliance on someone else's wealth. Shortly after, Mia and William held a grand wedding, predominantly funded by William, with my dad covering some costs out of formality. Their marriage lasted only 5 years, falling apart when Mia decided she didn't want children, a detail she had apparently never discussed with William. During my college years, I distanced myself, returning home only during holidays when Mia was usually away with William. Given all these experiences, my concerns about introducing Mark to this volatile mix-up family drama seemed well-founded. The advice I received from friends and the broader community only emphasized the need for careful handling of the situation, something I intended to manage with as much grace and caution as possible. William had always wanted to become a father, but he was disappointed that Mia had never been open about her reluctance to have children. He felt misled, as she had avoided the topic throughout their 5-year marriage. William also shared troubling behaviors of Mia, such as her frequent partying, flirting with other men at bars, and a clear focus on his wealth rather than emotional connection. He even showed me videos of her behaving inappropriately with other men during her nights out, reinforcing his relief at their separation. Despite William's grievances, my parents took Mia's side, blaming William for pressuring her about children and ignoring her problematic actions. After their divorce, Mia moved back in with my parents. Having dropped out of college to marry William, she now found herself without a degree or job prospects 5 years later. She pretended to be traumatized by the divorce, but quickly returned to a lifestyle of clubbing and casual relationships, flaunting her escapades on Instagram. 2 years into my career, I landed my new job and was doing very well financially, which thrilled my parents. During a celebratory dinner at home, Mia came back looking disheveled and partially intoxicated. This upset my dad, who expressed disappointment that Mia hadn't pursued her education and career like I had. He pointed out her financial dependency on them, which led my mom to caution him against such remarks. Mia, overhearing this, stormed off angrily. This was a turning point for my dad, who realized how indulged Mia had become. He urged my mom to encourage Mia to take responsibility for her life. That evening, Mia confronted me, trying to belittle me by mocking my appearance and claiming I could never match up to her, no matter my financial success. Her words no longer hurt me like they used to. Instead, I laughed off her insults and suggested she needed to adjust her attitude. This infuriated Mia, and she demanded I leave the house. I reminded her that it was our parents' home, not hers to control. The next day, as I packed to leave, I discovered that 3 of my dresses had been deliberately damaged. I showed them to my parents, revealing Mia's latest act of spite. My dad was furious and confronted Mia, but my mom attempted to downplay the incident, suggesting Mia was just acting out of shock. My dad had enough and sternly warned Mia that he could no longer financially support her or tolerate her destructive behavior. This confrontation only deepened Mia's resentment towards me, marking a clear divide in our already strained relationship. Having endured Mia's relentless hostility, I was initially indifferent to her antics, but things escalated when she began making advances towards my boyfriend, Mark. After much contemplation and discussion with Mark, we decided it was necessary for him to meet my family, including Mia. My friends suggested it was better to see how Mark would handle the situation sooner rather than later. When we arrived at my parents' houses, Mia's behavior was embarrassingly transparent. She had dyed her hair black and dressed up excessively, as though she was trying to impress Mark on a date. During introductions, she pushed her way into greeting Mark with an overly enthusiastic hug, ignoring everyone else's discomfort. At dinner, she made every attempt to insert herself into our conversation, claiming to share all of Mark's interests and exaggerating their compatibility. complete with suggestive winks. It was painfully obvious to everyone, including a very uncomfortable Mark, that she was trying too hard. Later, when I took a moment to shower, she seized the opportunity to ask Mark to help her find her phone, a thinly veiled excuse to get his number. Mia even resorted to sharing her tales of woe about her divorce, trying to elicit sympathy from Mark while our mother joined in to criticize William, Mia's ex. When Mark suggested a walk around the neighborhood to me, Mia quickly volunteered to join, only to be awkwardly rebuffed by Mark, who clarified he wanted time alone with me. Embarrassed, Mia retreated. Since that visit, I've been bracing myself for more of Mia's schemes to win over Mark. Despite my fears, I trust Mark and am curious to see how he handles her continued advances. Shortly after our visit, Mark proposed during a trip, and of course, I was ecstatic. Even after our engagement, Mia didn't give up. She began sending Mark messages filled with cat videos, a peculiar strategy given her known indifference to cats. She even went as far as to adopt a cat to further this new facade. Initially, Mark shared Mia's messages with me, showcasing her attempts to appear caring and involved. But after a while, he stopped mentioning them, which I interpreted as his way of sparing me the ongoing annoyance. This subtle shift in his handling of Mia's tactics only reinforced my trust in his loyalty and understanding of the delicate family dynamics we navigated together. After Mia's unsuccessful attempts to woo Mark, it seemed she had moved on, and so had we. Life was bustling with our demanding jobs, and honestly, we had far better things to focus on. However, a random scroll through social media revealed that Mia had recently connected with Mark's account, actively liking and commenting on nearly every post of his, even digging through archives as old as 7 to 8 years. Feeling uneasy, I impulsively checked Mark's phone and found that Mia had been sporadically texting him, although he hadn't read her messages. Her persistence appeared in the form of missed calls too, including one at 4:10 a.m., which really set off alarms for me. I confronted Marabou, not informing me of her continued attempts to contact him. He seemed nervous, but explained that he had been ignoring her to avoid drama, thinking it best not to worry me. Mark then shared that during one late-night call, Mia had reached out in distress, rambling about her traumatic experiences with William. He had answered out of concern, fearing something was wrong. When she began to offload her emotional baggage, Mark advised her to speak with her parents instead and emphasized that such late calls were inappropriate. He also told her she should have discussed it with me first. Disturbed by his omission, I expressed my discomfort with him keeping this from me, fearing it might erode my trust. Although he reassured me that he was not swayed by her tactics, I couldn't help but recall countless stories where such situations had led to betrayal. I insisted that any future calls from Mia should be handed to me, hoping to catch her in the act myself. Eventually, that moment came. He woke me in the middle of the night as her number flashed on the screen. When I answered, she hung up after realizing it wasn't Mark. The next day, I called her multiple times to confront her, but she didn't answer. I then texted her from Mark's phone, sternly warning her against contacting him at odd hours and stating that any urgent matter should be directed to me, not him. After that, she ceased her communications with him, and I felt a sense of relief. However, the peace was short-lived. After Mark proposed to me, and I shared our engagement news with my family, Mia resumed her old habits, bombarding Mark with messages and videos. Fed up, I called her out on her behavior, releasing all my pent-up frustration during the call. She barely responded, but the aftermath was immediate. My mother called, furious, accusing me of treating Mia harshly. She claimed my actions had caused Mia panic attacks and urged me to be more considerate towards her sister, who was supposedly struggling with depression following her divorce, an assertion that seemed contradictory to Mia's actual carefree demeanor post-divorce. Frustrated by my family's reluctance to see Mia's true nature, I told my dad that if they continued to ignore her manipulative behavior, I would have to distance myself for my own well-being. I was exhausted from being a pawn in Mia's games. Despite all the turmoil Mia had caused over the years, from body shaming and bullying to her audacious attempt to seduce my fiancé, I never anticipated she would go to such lengths to disrupt my life, especially as our wedding plans progressed. The situation reached a tipping point, but eventually my mom called to apologize, shaken by witnessing Mia's distress. According to one of my cousins, Mia had been lamenting my happy life to anyone who would listen. showcasing a mix of envy and regret that was hard to ignore. Mia's envy reached a boiling point as she spread rumors that I didn't deserve my success or my relationship with Mark, insisting that she, being the more attractive sister, was entitled to the best of everything. When I relayed her words to Mom, she paused and then advised me to focus on my upcoming wedding and the joyous life awaiting me with Mark. Fortunately, Mia kept a low profile leading up to the wedding day, allowing us to prepare without her interference. However, on the morning of the wedding, an urgent call from Mark's best friend shattered the peace. He insisted I come to Mark's room immediately, along with my parents. My heart raced as we rushed over, fearing the worst. We found Mark semi-conscious and shirtless, his groomsmen explaining that Mia had tried to sabotage him. As Mark was getting dressed, Mia appeared with a drink. Despite his refusal, she insisted, and he took a sip to avoid a scene, only to realize it was spite. He managed to excuse himself to the restroom and alerted his friend. By the time his friend arrived, Mark was slipping out of consciousness. His quick-thinking friend began recording as he entered the room and captured Mia inappropriately forcing herself on Mark, who was clearly incapacitated in protest. Mia, caught off guard by the friend's arrival, tried to spin the narrative, claiming they were consensually involved. When we arrived and confronted her, still visibly affected by the drug, it was a horrific scene. The drink, with residue still visible, underscored the severity of her actions. My parents were mortified. When Mom confronted Mia, who had hastily reapplied her smudged lipstick, Mia claimed it was mutual and that Mark had initiated. Mom, furious and disgusted by the lie, slapped her and exposed the truth with the video evidence. Realizing her plot had failed, Mia was promptly ejected from the venue by security, instructed not to let her return. The doctor confirmed Mark had been drugged, leading to severe nausea and disorientation, which delayed our ceremony as he recovered. The incident became the scandalous talk among our guests, overshadowing what should have been a day of celebration. When the wedding finally proceeded, Mark amended his vows, affirming his commitment to protect our relationship from any external negativity. After our honeymoon, my parents visited, extending heartfelt apologies to both of us for Mia's behavior, assuring us that she would no longer be a part of our lives. Dad had finally taken the step to ask her to move out and live independently. The whole ordeal left a lasting imprint on me, shaking the foundations of what was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. I was grateful for Mark's friend's quick action, without which I might have doubted Mark's loyalty under Mia's deceitful scheme. This incident, though painful, fortified our bond and our resolve to shield our union from any further malice. At my husband Michael's celebration where we shared our pregnancy news, things took an unexpected turn involving his sister Ellie, which ultimately led to serious consequences for her. I've been married to Michael for 7 years, and our relationship has been mostly wonderful, except for the complications brought by his sister. Initially, Ellie and I got along well, but over time, my perception of her changed as I realized how negative, manipulative, and toxic she could be. My efforts to keep the peace were significant, especially given Ellie's history of meddling in Michael's romantic life. Even after we started dating, she continually attempted to undermine our relationship by bringing up Michael's ex-girlfriends and suggesting he reconnect with them, behavior that both Michael and I found strange and unnecessary. Ellie's invasive tactics didn't stop there. She would monitor my social media activities obsessively and make unfounded accusations to Michael, which we both dismissed as ridiculous. Despite this, when Michael and I decided to move in together and later got engaged, Ellie's antagonism escalated. Her behavior became increasingly unacceptable, culminating at our engagement party where she dramatically walked out after feeling slighted that she wasn't informed of the engagement before everyone else. Her subsequent actions included sending me a nearly threatening message about being a good wife to Michael, claiming her place as the predominant woman in his life. This bizarre claim, along with her continued hostility, led me to decide she was no longer welcome at our wedding. This confrontation seemed to push Ellie over the edge. She became less involved in our lives, which was a relief, but her resentment lingered. Eventually, her actions at a recent event led to a situation where she now faces legal consequences and is going through a divorce. This drastic turn of events is a sad but necessary resolution to the ongoing drama she created in our lives, illustrating the severe impact of her actions not only on her relationships, but also on her personal situation. During a celebration where my husband Michael and I announced our pregnancy, his sister Ellie was noticeably taken aback when I finally stood up to her negative behavior. My mother-in-law was equally upset with Ellie and supported my stance. After the event, Ellie complained to Michael, claiming that I had embarrassed her and he should control me since we were to be married. Michael, standing firm, told her she needed to apologize or she would not be welcome at our wedding. Ellie eventually sent a half-hearted apology, which I chose not to respond to due to the stress of wedding planning and a desire to avoid further drama. Despite my reservations, Ellie attended the wedding, shockingly dressed in a black, floor-length gown complete with a veil, as though attending a funeral. This was her way of expressing that she was mourning the loss of her brother to me. Her attire and behavior were so inappropriate that my husband confronted her at the reception. She defensively claimed she could wear what she wanted, but our situation escalated until Michael's parents asked her to leave for causing a scene, sparing me further embarrassment. After our son John was born, I made the decision to keep Ellie away from him, a decision supported by Michael and his parents. They understood my concerns given her past actions. However, following a tragic miscarriage Ellie experienced, we tried to extend an olive branch, inviting her to spend time with John, hoping it might bring some positivity to her life. Initially, Ellie seemed to change for the better, showing genuine affection towards John, but it wasn't long before her old patterns of negativity and victimhood resurfaced. This year, Ellie planned her own wedding and pointedly excluded us. When confronted, she admitted she feared I would retaliate for her past actions by dressing inappropriately at her wedding, like she had at mine. Her admission was a manipulation tactic. When Michael discussed this with his parents, they decided not to support her wedding financially or attend, which led Ellie to reach out to me, tearfully asking for forgiveness. Although I was wary, I forgave her, hoping we could finally move past our issues. We attended her wedding, which initially seemed to go well. Unfortunately, it was not long before Ellie appeared at our doorstep, her marriage in turmoil, blaming her husband for their difficulties in conceiving. Despite her attempts to shift blame, I tried to offer support and advice, hoping she would take some responsibility for her own role in her marital issues. The cycle of drama with Ellie seems ongoing, but Michael and I continue to handle it with as much grace and patience as we can muster, always hoping for a better resolution. Whenever Ellie wasn't airing grievances about her husband, she'd obsess over our lives, concocting non-existent issues. For instance, I have a routine of hitting the gym each morning before work. On days when I'm running late, I bring my work clothes to change into after my workout and shower. Ellie noticed this and bombarded me with questions, seemingly puzzled why I need to shower or why I frequented the gym. I brushed it off, explaining that I like to stay fit and prefer not to arrive at work sweaty. She would just purse her lips and nod, seemingly dissatisfied with my answers. Things eventually smoothed over between her and Mark, and she moved back in with him. One weekend, my husband and I joined his parents, Mill and Paul, for lunch, along with Ellie and Mark. We decided to leave our son John with a babysitter, knowing he'd prefer playing at home to sitting through long adult conversations. During lunch, Mill shared a story about a friend who divorced after discovering her husband's infidelity, and subsequently claimed half of his assets. Out of the blue, Ellie asked my husband if we had signed a prenuptial agreement. The table went silent. She ignored me entirely and waited for my husband's response. He directly told her that since we both had good incomes, we didn't see the need for a prenup. Ellie scoffed, hinting that infidelity was rampant and he might be caught off guard any day. I was taken aback and demanded to know what she was implying. She then accused me of meeting someone secretly, given my habit of carrying a change of clothes for the gym. She claimed it was her duty as Michael's sister to alert him. Paul and Mill immediately defended us, criticizing her for stirring up trouble and meddling in matters that didn't concern her. Not stopping there, Ellie cruelly joked whether our son John was really Michael's, since she thought he didn't resemble him. This accusation made my husband visibly furious. In a rare display of anger, he confronted Ellie, telling her that her behavior was the reason she wasn't a mother, suggesting it was better that way given her character. Everyone at the table was stunned into silence by his outburst. Reduced to tears, Ellie looked to Mark for support, but he remained silent. Overwhelmed, she ran off to the restroom. After a moment, Mill approached to calm my husband down. He apologized for the distress his sister's words caused me. I reassured him, understanding the frustration she had provoked. I appreciated his public defense, having endured Ellie's behavior for years. Once he had settled, he apologized to Mark but continued to ignore Ellie. After that day, we decided to cut contact with Ellie completely. Her behavior was impacting both my husband and me, and it was healthier to block her entirely. Mill and Paul later discussed the lunch with us, agreeing that Ellie had crossed the line and understanding why their usually composed son had reacted so strongly. It's been a year since we last spoke to Ellie, and since then, life has been much smoother. Recently, I discovered some uplifting news, but with Ellie out of our lives, we've been able to enjoy our peace without her interference. I recently discovered I was unexpectedly pregnant. My husband and I were thrilled by the news, feeling immensely blessed to be expanding our family. We decided to announce our joy during my husband's upcoming birthday party, which his parents, Mill and Paul, plan to host in their backyard, inviting close family and friends. Unexpectedly, Ellie, my husband's sister, appeared at the party. She had been out of touch since our last uncomfortable encounter, so her presence was a surprise. Upon arrival, she embraced Michael, expressing regret for their past conflicts and missing him. It was clear she wanted to mend fences, insisting she owed me an apology for her previous accusations. She explained she had been attending therapy and realized how wrong her actions were. Although skeptical of her sincerity, I chose not to confront her in front of the guests and simply acknowledged her apology. Mill and Paul were equally surprised by Ellie's unannounced appearance and offered to ask her to leave if we felt uncomfortable. However, Michael preferred to avoid a scene, so we let her stay. Throughout the event, Ellie was unusually positive and sociable, which seemed at odds with her usual demeanor. But she claimed therapy was helping her change, and I tentatively gave her the benefit of the doubt. When it came time to cut the cake, Michael delivered a touching speech, expressing his gratitude for another year of life and his joy in our relationship. Flushed with happiness, we then shared our exciting news. We were expecting a baby. The announcement was met with tears and congratulations from everyone except Ellie, whose reaction was delayed and visibly upset, which worried me briefly about potential drama. Later, as lunch was being served, my family insisted I stay seated while they helped with the food, considering my pregnancy. Just then, Ellie approached with a plate for me, enthusiastically claiming she wanted to serve me as a gesture of goodwill for past grievances. I accepted the plate graciously, but before I could eat, I noticed she had included shrimp, which I am severely allergic to. Disappointed but cautious, I decided to get a different plate myself. While I was switching plates, Mark, who had also been at the party, came over to congratulate me on the pregnancy. I explained why I hadn't eaten the shrimp, and he kindly offered to take it off my hands since he enjoyed shrimp. I thanked him and went to get myself another plate. Moments later, Mark began to feel ill and vomited, causing a stir among the guests. Michael and Ellie rushed to his aid, concerned about his sudden sickness. The incident cast a shadow over the celebration, and it left me questioning whether the shrimp had been a mere oversight by Ellie or something more intentional, given her history. The uncertainty lingered as we continued to navigate our complex family dynamics, hoping for peace but remaining wary of potential conflicts. Mark clutched at his throat, his face contorted in pain, as everyone around gasped in horror, realizing something was terribly wrong. He collapsed, unconscious, prompting a frenzied rush to call an ambulance. As medics whisked him away to the hospital, the confusion and fear were palpable. Ellie, his wife, was beside herself with grief and shock. She checked the plate of food, her eyes wide with horror. Turning to me, she asked if I had given my plate to Mark. I nodded, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Ellie burst into tears, her glances flicking between anger and despair. Later, the hospital confirmed our worst fears. Mark had been poisoned. I was overwhelmed with guilt and fear, knowing that the food on that plate was originally meant for me. Could this have been an attempt on my life? And if so, was my unborn child also a target? My husband, Michael, and my in-laws, Mill and Paul, were unaware of these chilling details. The police took the remaining food for analysis, trying to determine the toxin that caused Mark's distress. Meanwhile, Ellie stayed at the hospital. Her worry for Mark mingled with unspoken questions about what had really happened. Back home, the phone rang incessantly. Family and friends seeking news on Mark's condition and speculating on the possible culprit. Mill and Paul, deeply shaken, decided to stay with us, fearing the safety of their own home. I was tormented by the thought of revealing the truth to everyone that the poison plate was initially given to me by Ellie. With the possibility of a police investigation looming, I knew I would have to disclose everything. The idea of what Ellie might be capable of terrified me. I couldn't risk our safety or that of our children. In the flurry of comments on my social media post about the incident, I found some solace, yet the guilt of not discarding the plate haunted me. My husband noticed my distress but was unaware of its true extent. Determined to clarify the situation, I planned to discuss everything with my family. Thankfully, Mill and Paul had security cameras installed, which might provide crucial evidence from the party. During a tense dinner with Michael, Mill, and Paul, I took a deep breath and explained everything from the shrimp on the plate to Mark's subsequent poisoning. The shock was clear on their faces. Mill, ever practical, suggested we review the security camera footage to confirm my account. As we watched the footage, it clearly showed Ellie serving me the plate. The undeniable proof of her actions was a bitter confirmation of her potential malice. Michael was silent, processing the betrayal by his sister. The air was heavy with the implications of what we had discovered. After discussing the next steps, we decided to support Mark in his recovery and ensure our family's safety from any further threats from Ellie. The betrayal was deep, but the clarity brought by the truth gave us a path forward to protect ourselves and handle the situation with the seriousness it warranted. After viewing the security footage that unmistakably showed Ellie giving me the poison plate, the atmosphere in the room was charged with emotion. Michael was visibly shaken, now fully understanding the extent of his sister's malice. Mill and Paul were horrified, unable to fathom why their daughter would resort to such dangerous lengths to sow discord. The silence that followed was heavy with disbelief and sorrow as we grappled with the grim reality of Ellie's actions. Recognizing the severity of the situation, my in-laws decided to hand over the security footage to the police. This wasn't just a family matter anymore, it was a serious crime. Paul and Michael planned to visit Mark in the hospital as soon as he was well enough. Mark would need to decide if he wanted to press charges against Ellie. The thought of how close I had come to being the victim of her plot haunted me, leaving me sleepless and anxious about Mark's condition. After a tumultuous month, I'm finally able to share more news. As a pregnant woman dealing with these shocks, it's been a trying time. Following our decision, my in-laws handed the incriminating footage to the police, who acted swiftly. Upon being confronted with the evidence, Ellie was arrested. Overcome with emotion, she confessed to her actions without denial. My husband spoke with Mark, who was understandably stunned by the revelation. Despite the familial ties, Michael encouraged him to press charges, emphasizing that he would have our support regardless of his decision. In the end, Mark chose not only to press charges, but also to file for divorce. Ellie reached out to Mill and Paul, tearfully pleading for forgiveness and trying to leverage her own pregnancy as a reason for them to bail her out. However, Paul, fed up with her manipulative tactics, informed her that they were done enabling her behavior. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. Mill is heartbroken over the circumstances, but recognizes that Ellie's actions are indefensible. The police investigation confirmed that Ellie had deliberately tampered with the food, intending to harm me, which tragically affected her own husband instead. She is now facing multiple charges, including tampering with food, endangering life, and causing bodily harm. The family is navigating this complex and painful situation as best we can, focusing on supporting Mark through his recovery and dealing with the legal implications of Ellie's actions. Ellie has been desperately pleading with Mark not to press charges, trying to shift the blame onto me. However, Mark remains resolute, his mind firmly set on seeking justice. Her court hearing is fast approaching, and it looks like she won't be able to evade the consequences this time. He's still unaware of what his aunt has done, but Michael and I plan to sit down with him soon to explain everything. We believe it's crucial for him to understand and be aware of such situations, though it will undoubtedly be a tough conversation. I'm also attending regular ultrasound appointments every 3 weeks as my pregnancy progresses. We've decided not to find out the gender of our baby, opting for a surprise instead. My parents are fully aware of the situation with Ellie and have become incredibly protective. They're concerned about the potential psychological impact on me during my pregnancy and have encouraged me to start therapy. I've realized that, despite appearing normal, I've developed a deep-seated fear of consuming any food that I haven't prepared myself. Thankfully, Michael is very supportive, helping me navigate through this fear, which I hope to overcome soon. It's been 8 months since. Ellie is now in prison, having been found guilty on all charges. I chose not to attend her court proceedings, but my in-laws kept me informed. In court, Ellie confessed that her actions were fueled by jealousy. She had always hoped one of her friends would marry Michael, and seeing him with me was unbearable for her. When we announced our pregnancy at Michael's birthday, which coincided with her own pregnancy news following a previous miscarriage, she felt overshadowed and acted out of a misguided sense of retaliation. Ellie admitted to adding a small amount of rat poison to my food, hoping it would make me ill enough to be hospitalized but not cause serious harm. She never anticipated that I would pass my plate to Mark, leading to his poisoning. Despite her plea for a lighter sentence by blaming hormones and claiming no intent to cause severe harm, the judge was unmoved and she received a prison sentence. Meanwhile, Mark has finalized his divorce from Ellie and remains a cherished part of our family. We've included him in our activities and have had many heartfelt conversations. He reassured me that what happened was not my fault, which has helped me cope with the guilt I felt over the incident. Michael and I recently welcomed a baby girl into our family. Despite the dark shadows of the past months, her arrival has brought immense joy and light into our lives. Our son John is thrilled to be a big brother and adores his little sister, showering her with love and affection. Watching our children bond fills our hearts with gratitude. Throughout all these challenges, both sets of our parents have been incredible, supporting us as we navigate this new chapter in our lives.